Well, you wish they could distribute some of those hits, because it should have been like 3-1, and then they could have saved up the others for the rest of the series.
Right, right. There's today that they're worried about.
Are we good? Okay, welcome everybody to the Essex Junction Trustees. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And if everyone hasn't done so, there's quite a few folks here, so if you get a chance, if you haven't signed in, it would be great if you could, because we'd like to know who you are. Appreciate it. First order of business, Evan, do we have any additions to the agenda changes?
We do. We have the capital spreadsheet to be added under new business 6E.
Okay.
And those were passed out there at your
Yep,
job.
we've got this here.
places.
We've got a hard copy. Yep. And anything else?
No,
That's it?
well, this isn't,
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Will we approve the agenda as amended?
no, she just wanted it.
Okay.
She didn't need it. She didn't
Oh,
want to discuss.
I think we have another, I think we had, no, I think this was just to be, but
This
would
is
be
just
added.
part of
It's
information.
part of it.
That's part of this?
Part of the other presentation, I think, isn't it? Right?
No, don't worry about it. The other memo, which says assistant to the manager, that is just for information only. One of the trustees asked for something, I passed it out tonight. So it's
Okay.
not on the agenda, doesn't need an amendment.
Okay, so we only have the one amendment to the agenda,
Correct.
which is the spreadsheet. Okay, do I hear a
Right.
motion?
I already moved it.
I'm sorry, and we hear a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is amended. We're going to move on to, the nenext item on the agenda is for audience. And we are going to be, for audience to be heard, comments from the audience. Now, for, this would normally be for things that are not on the agenda. And so the senior center and discussion about the senior center growth and needs is on the agenda tonight. So when we get to that, I will allow members of the public to make a comment or ask questions at that time. But if someone has a question about something that's not on the agenda tonight, now would be the time to ask it or to make a comment. Is that clear? Everyone understand what I'm saying? Yes. Okay. So, moving on, we have a presentation from Charlie Baker, Executive Director of the CCRPC. Welcome, Charlie.
Good evening. Thank you for the time on your agenda tonight.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure. This is my kind of annual check-in customer service call with the village. For those of you not familiar with the Regional Planning Commission, the organization is made up of the municipalities. Our board has representatives from each municipality, and you thankfully have appointed Dan, who's an active participant, and we appreciate his participation. And the report I sent you is, I think it's in your packet. I'll just run through that real quickly,
Yep,
and I'm
please.
happy to take any feedback, either questions, comments, something we did good, something we could do better. Feedback would be really appreciated. The first paragraph kind of gives you some background. We're 52 years old now. We have a 29-member board with municipalities, a number of transportation representatives, rail, the airport, GMT, et cetera. Financially, the municipal dues that we get is about $245,000. That's matched with another $5 million or so of federal and state grants. So there's a 14-to-1 leveraging of municipal investment in the Regional Planning Commission. And then you can see your representatives in FY18. I don't think that's changed for FY19. So thank you for that. Question? No. On the second page, and going on to the third page, are specific things that we did in the village last year, including the sidewalk and path study, a Route 15 sidewalk path scoping study, the village transportation plan update, some emergency management work, some municipal roads general permit assistance, the paver road survey, traffic counts. Happy to answer any questions or
great.
any feedback. Good? Everything was good with those?
Yep.
The, down at the bottom of the third page and rolling, I expect down to the fourth page, no, just the bottom of the third page, you have a few projects that are in our transportation improvement program, also in the state's capital program. A few, actually mostly water quality type projects, also Crescent Connector, which hopefully we'd like to see get done next week, next week.
Next week is good, yeah.
We start next week.
We wish it was.
Snap. Done. And then next year, week, year, little
You're
things.
tired of taking calls from Robin, aren't you?
Yeah. Thankfully he's, diverted to someone else, but working with V-Trans, I'm sure, on that. Happy to answer any questions, but those things are moving, and, I think you've been very successful as a town in tapping into some of the water quality grants that the state
Yes.
has made available, so that's good. The last 3 pages or so are a list of regional activities that, we do for the entire county. Things like updating our regional plan, legislative forum, the Building Homes Together campaign, working on clean water issues, brownfield issues, public health, regional dispatch, energy planning, the active transportation plan. Happy to answer any questions on any of these topics or activities, if there are any, or take any feedback.
Okay. I'll throw it open. Is that, I didn't want to cut you off, Charlie, is that good?
That is the end of my report.
Yeah, great, okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments?
I just have a good question. So, the section of Essex Junction activities, those first ones, like the sidewalks,
Yep.
the transportation stuff, or the transportation plan updates, those are competitive or those are allocated to us because we're a member? Like we compete against other municipalities for these opportunities, correct?
Yeah, so in our work program, and actually, one thing I should add in this conversation is around Thanksgiving time, we put out a request for projects for the following fiscal year, called our Unified Planning Work Program, or
Yep.
UPWP. Apologies for the acronyms. Love them apparently. And so it is somewhat competitive, although I will say that I think we have found a way to work on every request that we've gotten, unless it's ineligible. Sometimes we get a request we can't use our federal funds for. But other than that, I think sometimes we may defer 6 months. At worst, it may be to the next year. But if it remains a municipal priority, we will eventually get to it.
So I guess just for my own edification then, so by being a separate municipal entity, we are able to take advantage of this, whereas if we are not, we compete against ourselves or others?
You know what he's getting at, Charlie.
I've heard this question phrased
Yeah.
in different ways.
If this is gonna be, if this is,
My answer to that is no, if you were one municipality instead of two, can I start off like that?
Yeah.
Without upsetting anything? It would not harm your ability to get this work done. And how do I know that? Because it's not like we allocate a certain amount per municipality. And so you would obviously be a larger municipality, right?
Right.
Now you're coming in as a 20,000 person municipality, the second biggest municipality outside Burlington. But we have done, this much or more work for, South Burlington, Colchester, Burlington on a pretty regular basis.
yeah.
Frankly, Essex does, in general, if I can use that term to include the village, does not.
Yep. It's
know it
okay.
does. Doesn't ask quite for as much services from us actually as Burlington or South Burlington. And sometimes, there's ebbs and flows. So, I think there's still that capacity, and I don't see any negative impact if you were one instead of two, or two
Yeah.
instead of one.
And in essence, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we could ask for more.
I think you could.
I think certainly you can always ask.
I don't know how to phrase that. If I was you, I would. I think you should. So,
Great.
but I think it really is, and I think you have a great staff, looking at what the needs are for the village and the town. I think you're getting what you need, I hope, and what you asked for, so, if there's some more needs, I would be happy to listen to them.
Thank you, Charlie.
Charlie, just very briefly, what is the federal funding horizon? What are you looking at, do you anticipate over the next few years in terms of money flowing from the big spigot in Washington? Do you see, is it status quo? Do you see increases, decreases, anything predicting? Too hard to say?
It keeps flowing, I don't know, they keep
Okay.
printing it, so I guess they can keep it flowing. I think that's the big existential question for the country, right? I mean, are we gonna
Right.
get into a situation? But all reports are out, every time a program comes up, they're finding ways to keep it funded and keep it going, or even some increases in some things. So we really haven't seen.
I was thinking more specifically for the CERC alternative, some of those projects have been approved, but there's no funding, and so are we looking at the funding scheme will be more or less as we anticipate, or do you have a sense of that?
You're in the capital program with that, so there's kind of there's a commitment to funding.
Okay,
And it's FY19 dollars, I'm expecting, so you're in the budget this year that the legislature approved.
Okay.
So that is committed. I mean,
Okay,
I can't imagine that would go away. That would violate lots of trust principles with not just the village, but
a lot of things are being violated, so
Well-
it wouldn't be the first thing that happens.
The thing that does happen is when things are in maybe the second or third or fourth year of the program.
Right.
Those things often move. So I think that's the thing that I think, like, as we sit at our table, kind of pay attention to, like, where's the thing that was 2 or 3 years out, that's next year, it's still 2 or 3 years out,
Right.
it's kind of
Keeps
keeps
getting
sliding.
Okay.
Which I think that, this project was a little bit in that.
Yes.
That situation for a little
Yes,
while, but
yes.
now you're really, I think, there at construction stage.
Okay.
I mean, we have right-of-way acquisition happening,
Right.
so they don't tend to do that.
No, yeah, you're on the glide path now to it happening.
The only other thing I'll say, as I say again, I really, really appreciated the economics of housing
Okay.
meeting that Regina put on. I thought it was outstanding, and it was extremely informative for me from my civilian's perspective looking at housing in Chittenden County. It was really great. She did a great job, and she had a great group there that
Yeah.
at the hotel in South Burlington.
Yeah.
It was really nice meeting.
We'll pass that along.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's another session coming up, October 20th, I think, focused on the housing trust fund, so.
Oh, yeah, okay, good. Trustees, other questions, comments? All good? Well, we won't keep you, I'm sure you've got other, and you're making the rounds, so we appreciate it very much you coming by and sharing this with us.
Underhill's next.
All right.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
sir.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are on to old business, and we are going to discuss, sort of having a continuing discussion of the senior center growth and needs. And let me, Ally and Luann, do you want to join us up here? And I think, Luann, you had some additional, you
I
had
do.
a thing that you said you wanted to hand out?
I do,
That'd
so,
be great.
with the data I was compiling, I did not include this because it wasn't something that was specifically asked for, but I thought it might be of interest. It is the attendance so far this year by month, and also demographics by age, so you can see what the ages are of the
Okay, well,
seniors that
split
come.
it in half.
And I thought you might enjoy seeing the newsletter, so you can see what we're up to.
Let me start off by saying that what this discussion is not about, this discussion is not about cutting back any services, cutting back any funding, cutting back anything that's currently being provided to the senior center. We had wanted this primarily because we wanted, if anything, our thinking, do we need to be putting more into the senior center? And with budget season coming up, now would be the time to be looking at that. And if we're going to be doing any significant things, that would be the time we would need to have that discussion. So I want to ease anyone's concerns that what we're about here is looking for some way to cut a program or cut back on some service. That's not what we're going to do. And let me, I'm going to guess, how many folks would like to have something to say, or would like to ask a question or have a comment? Okay, I will give you an opportunity to speak now, or you can hear us talk for a little while, and then maybe you'd want to talk, make a comment then. I'll leave it completely up to you.
Thank you. I think it would be better if we made our comments after the presentation, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
That sounds
Is that
good.
okay?
That sounds good, thank you. And I'll give everybody else the same opportunity. So where we left off before, we had some questions about busing. We had questions about the organizational structure. We had questions about how the senior center has grown in terms of population. So we had just a lot of general questions about what's going on, and we asked Ally and Luann and Evan and staff to put together some of these things. And I'm happy. Ally, do you want to do the presentation? Do you want to go through these numbers for me, or should I do that? Would you prefer to do it?
Happy to have an overall discussion about it. You know, Luann put a great report together,
Okay,
added more things to it in the memo that you all received last week.
okay,
In regards to the top 6 or 7 items or so that were narrowed down to for the time being from the August 28th meeting.
right,
And so really just tried to touch on those, to get those answered for you,
Okay.
and just start providing that information to help your discussion and your thoughts going
Okay.
forward.
okay, great. So one of the things that I've noticed, that just looking at this, is that the senior, as far as I can tell, the senior center the number of people who belong to the center has basically tripled over the last few years. But it seems to be holding steady, or do you have a sense that it could get bigger if we had more space?
I believe it could get bigger if we had more space and
Okay.
more parking. It's, right now, it's a flux because we lose members, but we gain members. We had 76 new members since January. I had 2 just since I wrote this report. So we have a constant, coming in of brand new members, but we also have members who are aging out, can't come anymore, nursing homes or pass away sadly. So there's this constant flux. So I think right now word of mouth is growing. Winooski has just started sending members our way. We had 6 or 7 join about 2 weeks ago, and they said that they expect several to follow. Because our center is more active and just doing more things that appeal to them. So I think as word of mouth comes out about the things that we offer and the success of the center,
Yep.
that you're gonna be seeing more people. I also think that if more senior housing goes up, as is proposed, that's gonna bring in, we gained a lot of members when the second building on Joshua Way went up. So I think a lot of it is gonna be the trends that happen within Essex, and the population isn't going anywhere, that's for sure.
Okay, right.
And not just with the senior housing on the membership side, but also people purposely moving to Essex because of the senior van service.
Really?
Yes.
So, both of them combined, not every rider is a member, not every member is a rider.
Yep.
So those are all a little bit different as well, and then you have some that are both. But again, with the transportation service, that is 5 days a week, and the, full-time hours at the center for the most part. It's a lot.
I just have to say, just comment, I think that's wonderful to hear that. Now, other people, they may think it's bad, but I think it's great to hear that people are moving here because of our senior center and the bus service. I think that's a good thing. That's
Being touted as one of the best places for senior services right now in the area.
Yeah.
And the senior van has a lot to do with it, 'cause people know that when they can't drive anymore, they don't wanna be stuck at home.
Right.
And the senior van is a huge plus, and we are the only place right now in the state of Vermont, they have Cedar in the North Country, but it runs a little bit differently,
Right.
that offers any service like the senior van that's free for residents. So
And it's not just the residents themselves, it's their children.
Yep.
Finding homes for their aging parents who want to be close to family and grandchildren.
Great, great. And let me just go over the numbers here. So we have, it looks, I think that out of 303 total, I think the two that are relevant for us, there's 124 from the town outside the village and 79 or so from within the village. And then trickling down from there, Williston, Burlington, Colchester, and then we get into single digits. So they really are coming from all around, but primarily they're coming from Essex, so that seems about right. That's fantastic. And just having gone through this, but if you could just summarize for me, either one of you or both, what, in order of priority, what would be the biggest, other than space, more space, what would be the biggest need that you would have? What would you say we would like to have, or something we're not doing now that we would like to be able to do or do more of?
Yeah, the number, I can tell you, the number one desire on the survey that was done right before I started working was day trips. I mean, seniors love to be able to get out and be able to do things, so that was the number one thing that they asked for. It would be nice to have more meals offered. Right now, we just don't have the space. H-Well has approached me about being a congregate meal site, but we don't have the parking space or the space in the kitchen or whatever to offer that right now, or the staff.
Okay.
My being the only staff is very difficult. Some paid help would be wonderful. I can't survive without my volunteers, many of whom are here, that clock, as you saw in the report, hundreds of hours of being at the center and helping out. And I know that's a budget concern, but, you know, that's, the more programs we can offer. Somebody asked, can you ever do anything in the evening? Because I'm a senior, I'm in my 60s, but I have to work still.
Yeah.
And I would love to do some of the things you offer, but everything's during the day while I'm at work. So it's something else to look at. Of course, right now, I mean, I can barely fit in doing what I'm doing now in the senior advance thing, so coming back in the evening would be disastrous for me right now, but it is something to look toward, you know, if you do want it to grow, if you want to offer more things. Just a potluck once a month in the evening would be great, you know, but seniors don't drive at night.
Yeah.
Because of vision issues and things, many of them won't drive at night. So there's just a lot of factors to consider moving forward.
And our transportation stops around that
Yeah,
time too.
yeah, this has
So,
to be, yeah, that's taking
difficult.
up, yeah.
You know, we've talked about these things over the years, and Luann is constantly thinking of them, but it's hard to add more to a very full capacity position and overall service.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we're feeling, you know, pulled in multiple directions, and we're in this job because we love to provide and we want to do more.
Right.
But our, you know, our wisdom wings start getting a little bit more visible when we stress ourselves wanting to provide more.
Yeah, I'll let the other members ask, but just one last question I have. Do you feel, though, you have a really nice quality program now? Is there any concern that if you get too big, you could get a little too corporate, a little too stiff, a little too, and then you could lose some of your quality? Is there any concern about that? Do you feel the sense that?
You never want to get corporate. I mean,
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Just-
I do know what you mean. I don't think we'd want to grow to that extent, but I don't think we would, honestly, because right now, people that are utilizing the senior center is such a diverse population, and what they come for is very diverse. There are people that only come for meals, or only come for cards, or only go on trips. It's a very diverse interest coming forth. As much as I'd love to see us grow, we would definitely have to have a bigger center and more staff so that we could accommodate the growth, so that we didn't become, you know, right now, everybody loves our space because it's so homey.
Yes,
And it is.
that's what I guess I'm getting
There's
at.
not cinder block walls and tile floors, it's homey, it's a homey environment.
Right.
So for many people that come, it's their home away from home, literally. And I would never wanna lose that, because I think that's what brings people in, as they say, it's so warm and welcoming here, that's why they come. And I would hate to change, and, you know, I would rather have the audience speak to some of the things that you're asking me, because they're the recipients of the services. So when you ask what wish list is, they might be a better group to talk to about what their wish list would be for the
Okay.
center when you get to that point.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, I'll throw other trustees' comments, questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Yep.
And I'm probably gonna get a little bit more into the weeds, sorry. So this was great information, so I'm just gonna this may not be in order. you talked about the service hours, the volunteer hours, which is incredible, but that those hours were not part, the busing is not part of those hours. So can you tell me a little bit about those hours, the volunteers that do busing, and then who supervises those volunteers?
Yeah,
And if that's in here, I apologize.
no, that's okay, because I too am trying to find, so the drivers are paid, so the
Right.
drivers are not volunteer, but the phone line is typically 2 volunteers per weekday,
Okay.
from 9 to noon.
Okay.
And that's taking all the calls, it's, one person is, you know, they each have a role in regards to verifying the information of the appointment. And then, you know, Luann has put on some appreciation luncheons, and last year around November, because it's like the month of thanks, there was a meeting, a luncheon with all the drivers and the volunteers
Nice.
to kind of get everybody on the same page, and this is when the ridership application process was starting, and we were letting them know and showing them a draft of what we
Right.
were gonna be asking in case they had feedback, but also for phone volunteers to let the drivers know what bumps in the road that they come across and vice
Right.
versa.
So it's a lot, it's a lot of work for the volunteers
It's
to
a
do
lot of
busing.
work for the volunteers, yes.
And who supervises those people? Luann, you?
It's primarily Luann.
Okay.
And when she's unavailable, you know, I'm available, or like on Wednesdays lately, we've had, you know, some calls coming in that an additional van has been needed. And she's usually at the luncheons getting things ready. So then they're calling the office to see if we can get a vehicle and
Right.
a driver and things like
Yeah.
that. So, you know, it's nice that it's right here in the building, otherwise they call over to us.
Okay. And then the application process, so what if someone calls today and says, I'd like to ride the bus on Thursday? Is that possible or not, because they have to fill out this application process first? Which I think is great that there's an application.
Yeah,
but
there's
just
never
curious
been an
with the time.
application process, and we've just kind of gone off of things and assumed that everybody is still well and able
Right.
to get the information that we're providing. So until, I don't think we've actually turned to anybody
Actually, we did.
until recently, though.
Until recently,
Right.
until the second mailing.
So
Okay, so
we
give them
sent,
time to-
we sent a large mailing out in January and wanted responses back as soon as possible, and gave them a couple different options, and then we were still missing a chunk. And so Luann put together a second mailing, and in that, there was a bright sheet that said, you can't have another appointment
Okay.
until we hear back from you.
Okay.
Because at that point, it had been September, and we had been
Right.
busy, and
Right.
And Lori, to answer your question about a new rider, if a new rider called today and wanted the van for Thursday, or let's see, yeah, okay, so we would say to them, is this an emergent situation? So if someone broke an arm and needed to get to the doctors for a cast or something like that, I would complete the application with them over the phone. And then I would tell them that I would mail it to them
Okay.
for their signature, but we would schedule them for a ride.
Okay.
But we wouldn't do another ride unless it got returned.
Right.
Otherwise, if they say, no, it's not an emergent, situation, but I'd really like to be in the system for the van, then we mail them a packet,
Okay.
and we tell them to just get it back to us as soon as possible. They could drop it off at the center, they could drop it off at 81 Main, and they usually get them right back. So, we constantly, again, have an influx of new riders.
Right.
And every time somebody new joins the center, we also talk about the senior van and give them a packet.
Right.
Because even if they are current drivers, come winter, grocery shopping and things like that, even seniors who drive may prefer to have the senior van
Right.
door-to-door service
Absolutely.
and not schlepping a cart through the snow and the ice, and it's just a safety issue.
Right.
So we do have a lot of people that even though they're current drivers, will still use the van on occasion.
Right, thank you. So in one of the paragraphs, you talk about the vans operating through events and trips scheduled by the Parks and Rec program, and then smaller trips scheduled by the senior activities coordinator. So who pays, I know when it's the senior center, they pay for the driver. If it's scheduled by Parks and Rec, does it come out of the budget of Parks and Rec or budget of the senior center? Or just when you schedule, right? Yeah, okay.
Like the purple brochure that went home that our program coordinator put together, a theater trip at Memorial Hall, then that's just paid through operating.
Okay.
Because special event hours are budgeted in the operating approved budget for the drivers to work those
Okay.
additional hours throughout the year rather than just their scheduled days.
Okay, got it.
So those are already budgeted. It's the additional hours that there is a pass-through.
That's true. And that, actually, I was curious about that, because I thankfully still get both brochures from both rec departments at my house, which is great. And I noticed that ERP still has a 55+ section, and EJRP doesn't. So I'm curious what those just be all 55 and over activity. There's no answer, that's fine. I mean, just
There's no distinct answer. Luann's and things that she hears. So this transition in a way of a hired position that was part-time to a little bit more hours to full-time and still continuing to schedule those things. And Luann's at her max.
Right.
And we have, another 3 to 5 trips scheduled each season that Adrian is working on, our program coordinator.
That's, I was just curious.
It is
I
very
noticed that.
cumbersome for seniors who are members because I can't register them for
Through the- right,
EPR trips.
right.
Even though they say, well, aren't you a rec employee for the town? Why do I have to go over to 81 Main to sign up for
Right.
a trip? So it's very cumbersome. So I do get a lot of feedback from seniors saying, why can't we just sign up for everything here?
In one place.
The Thanksgiving meal coming up, I've probably had a dozen people already come in and say, hi, I want to buy a ticket for the Thanksgiving. You have to go to your EPR.
Right.
So that is, and for seniors to drive someplace else, but when they're already, it is a big deal for
And
them.
and the town and the village programs, like, where do I have to go to sign up
Right.
for what?
Means I think we're just providing everybody because some of us are still separate.
Right.
And on the registration aspect, just this past spring, we got an upgrade to our registration software, and we just haven't gone through a training that doesn't need to be just on Luann's desktop and a whole new license. It's in that beautiful thing called the cloud.
Of course.
So, she could have access to it and get training for that, and then be able to see, is there even room in there? I can sign you up. And then when she sees the van driver, she could. There's all these, we could do
Right.
that. So it's not saying no to things, and the simplest thing is picking up the phone to say, is there room in this? And this person has a check, and I can make a copy of the registration form. Great, can you add them in? It's like it's in the mail, sort of thing.
Okay.
So there are possibilities and things to make happen. It's just
Yeah, I know, I understand that. And then there were a lot of things in here, and this is really probably for Ally and Evan, but there were quite a few things in here about the busing, and obviously we have a problem with bus drivers in our state. I mean, we just can't find any. But I know EJRP has buses, and so if there's any, if you've been coordinating with them at all, just, something to look into. But this information was really helpful, so I
Yeah.
appreciate
The-
all the
Good.
time put into
That's-
gathering it.
For those, the senior buses are through a lease
Yes, I
through the
understand that.
transportation agency. We provide the trained bus drivers for the senior transportation. As I understand it, the EJRP buses are driven by employees of the village that have CDL.
Right.
right.
And
And our
so-
drivers do not have CDL.
Oh.
It's not required. And so we have coordinated in the past or tried to. For example, last year in December, we had the lights tour scheduled and the roads were horrible. And then we had a van breakdown. So we had 22 people wanting to go. There are 2 staff that ride the vans with everybody as kind of their tour guides. And called over to EJRP, and if there was a driver available, there could have been a way to make it happen if everybody was still comfortable once we made the road decision. But again, it's contracting out in a way
Yeah.
of hiring and seeing if somebody else is available to drive the EJRP van, who is an EJRP employee.
Who is also being paid on an
Who's also
hourly
being paid,
basis, similar to the drivers, although they may be on overtime.
Right.
But one of the items that you will see in your joint meeting this coming week is a proposal to actually consider moving
Right.
Essex Rec over to EJRP on 75, which will eventually help with some of these
Yeah,
mechanisms
good
because you're working together. Your question before is also, the senior center here, wonderfully run, it is not the only senior activities the town or the village offers. They have other programmings because there are other facilities available for that programming and other teachers of those classes available. So we have what we have here and what's being done with cards and lunches and other things, and the people are welcome to do it, but they're also
Yeah.
able to partake in other things.
Right.
I also think that one of the things you'll see is, and it was quite interesting, and thank you for the age breakdown, which I happen to know because one of my former buildings had a senior center in it, and it's interesting. You have very few people from 50 to 59.
Which brings up,
That age, they may not consider themselves seniors,
Oh,
and they don't. So they
I'm
are.
not ready
per-
for that.
they are probably partaking of other programming in and around the community until such time as they want to meet these lovely people and do those types of things too. It's just
I
what
just
we
want you to
offer.
know, I just realized I'm gonna be 50 next year.
Oh.
And I just always thought it was 55. And I appreciate that, and I guess
And you know
as
we're on
we-
the air, right?
I know, it's fine, it's fine.
just a number, Lori.
I just think as we continue these discussions, those are the types of policy decisions we should
Right.
think about.
Yes.
You know, should we have 2, should we have 1, how should we do this? So it's just good to have the information, so I will stop asking questions because
No, they're all good questions, and on Evan's point with what could happen with the presentation on Thursday night in regards to both departments, you know, that really goes along nicely with aligning refund policy, cancellation policy, who's doing what, streamlining, because right now, some of us, between both departments, have our fingers in everything, right? Because that's our capacity and that's what we're doing and we're still providing all these things. And then other people are really streamlined and can really give a full 100% or more to what they're scheduling and providing and what their hours are like streamlined for. And then if there's extra, they may have that time.
Right.
And right now, it's not happening for everybody. And I think if you get all the programmers in with one another, then they get to streamline all of
Right,
that.
right,
You
which is
know.
great.
And right now, yes, we're part of one department, but the center is, Luann is part of our department, but the center is
A village
a
department.
village
Right,
department
yes.
that is overseeing, and we know that lovely mix we've made there, but it's just another unique aspect of our community.
Yes, it is. We have many of them.
We do.
We do.
And I like the idea though that if we can bring IT to the center
Mhm.
to allow them to do some of that scheduling and registrations, we do take checks. We take checks for water and sewer here in this building, so we can take checks for programming.
I take checks every day.
So
Just not credit cards.
we can figure that out. We can figure that out.
Do we see opportunities if the 2 boards approve the move of the town rec to Maple Street? Do you see more opportunities for synergy in terms of the senior center program between the village and the town? Do you see any changes? Is that going to impact you one way or the other?
With With the senior center?
Yeah,
No, I think it just gets the programming and the scheduling and the policies, whether it's, like I said, refunding or canceling or processing or renting, that they start to all mirror one another. So if we ever get to the point, then it's much more seamless.
well, I guess what I'm getting at, yeah, maybe I'm
Right.
not, maybe I'm being obtuse, I'm sorry if I'm being obtuse, in terms of, just like we were talking about, having seamless registration, signing up for programs and so forth, at Maple Street here, having the same software, everyone has the same software on their desk, maybe even at the town office, so that you don't, it's sort of one, you hit one desk, you can sign up for anything you want, is that?
That's the hope,
Okay.
is to get there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it doesn't matter, even the idea of, this is the one brochure you get in the mail, and it's not, this half on the left side of the staple is one department, and this is the other department. You're just going to one place or one place to register, whether it's physical or online, so it's starting to look seamless,
Okay.
even though the GL accounts behind the scenes are staying separate to keep our finance ladies.
That's Lauren's problem.
happy.
That's-
She would take these arrows.
We
See, they're
do
both
try
wearing
to
green.
simplify. Yeah. The back office, nobody likes to see the sausage made.
Yeah.
They just like sausage. Good, and that's fine. And then, you know, we're gonna, ultimately, then we also have to deal with residency.
Right.
Not so much the Essex and Essex Junction residency for people completely out of either.
Right.
What do you mean by deal with residency?
Some things are done, you have to be a resident.
Oh, you mean through the programming, yes, yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, and even on the center side, Luann and I have briefly talked about it, and with budget stuff coming up, we'll be revisiting it. But the membership rate, when it became one flat rate for the whole year, it's the same for anybody from Arizona to Essex, you know, on the residency list for the center to be a member. It's the same rate. There's no difference in rate. Similar, opposite of how the programming registration works from the two department brochures, where it's resident versus non-resident with a slight change in price. So just thinking of membership revenue and things like that.
Which really came up. Recently, we co-sponsored a trip with EJRP. And there was a set price for what we set, Essex residents or non-residents, and members and non-members. Okay, so you could be a member of the senior center and not live in Essex and pay the lower rate because you were a member. But what happened was, I had somebody on the trip that came in and said to me, well, I had to pay the non-resident price because I live in the town of Essex. And they signed up at EJRP. If they had come into the center to register,
Yeah.
I would have said, are you an Essex resident? They would have said yes, they
Yeah.
would have gotten the lower rate.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things happen, a lot that have to be kind of straightened
Sorted
out,
out,
you know, and
yeah.
I felt so bad because everybody else on the trip, you know,
Yeah.
didn't have to pay that extra
Yeah.
$10 a person,
Yeah.
and I felt badly, so it's, you know, those kinds of things, if we're gonna start working together,
Right.
are things that we
Need to
have
be
to look
ironed
at
out,
for
yeah.
sure.
And just when you thought that you covered all your bases
Yeah.
with kind of the 4 different categories.
Yep.
Gotcha. Other questions, trustees? Questions, comments?
My only other question, so besides the additional capacity for day trips and meals, what else is being held back by only having one amazing Luann instead of additional amazing
Well,
Luanns?
right now, Andy, the biggest problem is I'm a union employee, and the biggest problem is the constraints in time, because by union rules, I have to work an 8-hour day and 40-hour week.
Mhm.
So there are times when I have to be later. We're setting up for events, or our craft fest is on a weekend, or we're, you know, there are just times and trips that are longer, take longer than 8 hours a day. And if I take more than 8 hours right now, they have to pay me overtime, which wasn't budgeted.
Mhm.
So that makes it very difficult, and if I had a flexible 40-hour week,
Mhm.
I wouldn't make as much money because I wouldn't be getting overtime, but it would serve the center better because then if I did have to stay till 6 o'clock one night, I could come in at 10 the next morning. And it, you know, I'd still have my 40-hour week, and there would just be less overtime being the longer trip days or, you know, the weekend events or things like that. So there's that's a very, which is new since I became full-time in the union, has been a very difficult thing for me to navigate, I'm gonna be honest, because I'm doing a job and a half. I'm doing a full-time job as the senior center director, and I'm doing a part-time job overseeing the senior van coordinator volunteers and doing all the slips and putting all that in the system and maintaining the spreadsheet and getting the mailing out. This is all time-consuming work that takes me away from the business of the center, which, thank goodness, I have the people behind me.
Yeah.
Because they are, you know, doing things like making sure the kitchen is clean and the dishwasher gets run and the floors are swept and the tables are set up. And if I had to do all that, it would be impossible.
Yeah.
It would really be impossible. So, you know, you ask what we need. We're running well, but it's a little stressful trying to stay within the constraints of the time. More flexibility within the schedule would be wonderful, so that we could do the things that we need to do. The mission of a senior center is to provide services to seniors.
Right.
And that's what we do, and we're just so much more than just play cards. I mean, if someone dies or has a spouse that's getting Alzheimer's, you know, we talk about those things. We have people come in and talk about those things. I'm a referral source as well. They'll come to me and say, Luann, do you know where I can go for this? Age Well or Dale, or I'll hook them up with other agencies in the state, working right now very, very closely with other agencies in the state as the senior population grows. We're just much more than just what people might think is a social club.
Right.
It's much more than that. So, you know, I think that people need to understand more what we do over there and how much is involved in it than just, you know, setting up a card game here or there.
Right, and I hope you don't assume that, or don't,
Yeah,
that's what I was saying.
Oh,
so,
gosh, no,
okay.
I know, and it's very hard for me to say what do we need. I mean, honestly, my wish list has always been more parking spaces, which we had and then got taken away. And handicapped accessible, handicapped push button doors has been on my wish list for a couple of years now. Another bathroom, we have one restroom in a senior center, which is not ADA compliant. Gratefully, the village allows us to use their
Sure.
restrooms, and one is ADA compliant. So, wish list, yeah, those kinds of things are on my wish list. Budget wise,
Luann, just back up,
Sure.
what parking spaces did we take away? I'm not clear.
So, historically, when we talked about the budget last year,
Right,
and we talked about the parking spaces along the fire station being senior center parking. The year before, we had talked about handicap parking, but we couldn't because of the grade. So then you said, well, what about this year? We said, well, can they at least be senior center?
right.
And y'all voted yes unanimously that there was any reason why those parking spaces, so 7 signs were put up one day and the next day 3 were removed.
Okay.
Has
So,
the
yeah.
parking, has it helped at all with the firefighters parking?
Oh, absolutely.
It has, okay.
Oh, absolutely. Let's freed up some parking there.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
definitely.
But yeah, I do remember we voted to have more. And this is for you all, I had been all week trying to remember to send you all Dale did a big survey on senior centers. I didn't send that to you all, did I?
I didn't get it.
Okay, so I will send it as well, because a
Who's
lot of
Dale?
what's being, Agency of Disability,
Aging.
Department of
Independent
Agency,
Living.
I knew I was gonna mess that up. But it's a state agency,
Oh.
and they have done a lot of research on senior centers just recently, so it's perfect with the conversation that we're
Okay.
having, so I'll send that out to you all.
Okay. Why don't we take, I won't say we're ending the discussion, but why don't we take a break right here and see if folks in the audience have something to say or a question? Is that okay? Yeah? So anyone in the audience now, if you have a question or, I'm sorry.
And if,
Oh, yes, and please state your name
yeah, thank you.
clearly, because we want to put you in the minutes. We want to,
I'm
Thanks.
Pauline
Thanks.
Gincola, and I've been a member of the senior center. I was here at the last meeting for it. And on page 4, when you started the meeting, you mentioned that the programs at the senior center would not be cut. You're not here to cut programs.
Right.
If you read starting at the overtime hours, have not been incorporated into previous budgets, but will be considered accordingly in the upcoming budget approval process. A reduction, that word reduction, of programs and senior center hours will also be considered as an alternative to the cost increases. Now, that kind of sends the seniors a message that the Essex Town and Village is thinking about cutting the hours for the senior center and programs, and taking away programs that most of the seniors work on different activities
Right.
to raise money for these programs. We pay extra to go to some of these programs to help fund them. So this is a big concern for the
Okay.
seniors.
Okay. I'm glad you pointed that out, and we'll make sure we make note of it, so, because that's
Okay.
not our intention, is to cut anything back.
Can I
Okay,
just
thank
make
you.
a
Yes, yes.
clarification on that? Just to clarify, it really comes down to all the extra time Luann is logging, like she just mentioned with her position and the restrictions around it. So those trips and everything are great. We know you all want them, but then that puts a staff member on them, on the trips. So that's where the increase is happening, that's currently not budgeted for. And so we need to take a broader, a closer look really at how many and when and what trips are done and what that requires of Luann, and see if that's feasible to keep doing with her position with the town.
The problem has been going on for not just 1 year. The problem's been going on since my husband and I have been members of the senior center. And every time we come to a meeting or it's talked about, oh, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that for the senior center, but it doesn't improve any. No support comes, like our coordinator, Luann, has been working hours and hours and hours for the seniors. And yet, every budget year, nothing happens to help her. Why is it not incorporated into the budget? The town, the village finds money to employ new employees, get part-time employees, but never for the senior center. That is a problem, and you're sending your seniors in the town and village a really negative message.
Well,
Okay.
if you don't mind, I hear your comments, but Luann's position has been upgraded year
It has been upgraded.
to a full-time position with benefits for the activity at the senior center. And so I hear what you're saying, but the reality is that the village and the town have put serious investments into the seniors, including the senior van, including Luann's hours. We thank the volunteers for helping make this work because of the ability that we need the volunteers to be able to make this work. So I don't know how you feel that taking someone who is part-time and making them full-time from 20 hours to 40 hours and providing benefits is not investing in the seniors.
But do you realize the work that this coordinator puts into a day, servicing the seniors, servicing all the programs, because she does so much for the senior center that it's time that the trustees start considering putting a part-time person in there to help her. You can find part-time positions in other departments.
Yes, and we
Why
have-
can't you find one for the senior center?
I think that's something I think what you're asking in this discussion is exactly the kind of thing we had in mind, as I said, heading into budget season, and I know the town select board will get the same message, that we take a hard look at this and say, what more do we need to do? Do we need to be putting in additional resources than more than what we're putting in now? I think the issue, one of the difficult part is that unlike a business where we have might have a lot of flexibility, if someone's working a lot of overtime, to say, okay, that's great, we can just pay them more. Municipal governments, we have to say, here's how much we're gonna spend on this thing and this thing and this thing ahead of time. And we have a little bit of leeway to go over that, but we don't have much. Otherwise, the voters say, well, you've exceeded your budget. So that's kind of, it's a little trickier sometimes in a government structure than it would be if it was a private or a nonprofit organization or something like that. But this is exactly the kind of information that we wanted to get going into the budget season.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
Hi, my name's Anne Marie Dennis. I'm here to talk about, of course, the parking spaces. Actually, 3 issues. The parking spaces, the van parking, and also the handicap accessibility to the building. I mean, it is for seniors, and so what I've done is I've created a petition, and I have over 100 signatures. Over 1/3 of the senior center members have signed a petition asking for some handicap buttons. Right now, we have 2 fire doors we have to get into the building. There's no windows or anything, and if someone is leaving the building the same time a senior is opening the door, and a senior is trying to push the door open, the senior almost falls every time. Someone has to catch them. It's dangerous to not have handicap accessibility. So, according to ADA regulations, it's not compulsory for the municipality to supply them unless they receive 1 complaint. I want to hand in a petition with over 100 complaints that we need these, asking this to be part of what's done, to make the place safer to get in and out of. And then regarding the parking, yeah, we were given 7 spaces, 3 were taken away, and now that the fire department has 7 spaces of their own, we're asking, can we have our 3 spaces back? I mean, it's just one of the questions. We were told over 5 months ago, when that issue was first brought up, that it would be looked into. Who looked into it? Who was supposed to do the research and find out whether it was 7 or just a few or what was going on? Evan? Who did you assign to look into it?
I don't know that we've assigned anybody, and it's
Yeah.
something that we can look into. You
Yeah,
know.
well, that's what we were told 5 months ago. I'm still waiting to hear what's going on.
But the designated spaces next to that we did say specifically for, that hasn't helped at all? Are those always full?
Oh,
Definitely always
Are they?
full, yeah. But still, a lot of people are having to walk back from the library back parking lot to walk out here.
I think part of the strategy was if we provided spaces in the front of the fire station for the firemen,
Right,
then they wouldn't be parking behind the fire station, and that would free more spaces up for the senior center.
right.
And that doesn't, you don't have a sense that that's happening. You're saying you would like to see some designated spots for the seniors?
Well, there are some events that we do on a weekly basis sometimes that will have 30 and 40 people there at the center at a time.
Yeah.
And if you're talking over half of them handicapped, as you see, 80 and 90-year-old folks, even if they're not handicapped and using a walker, they're not really walking as steadily as they could be. And so they need the assistance. They can't walk that far. They can't stand that long.
Yeah.
So we're just asking, we were promised you would look into it, and we still haven't heard. So we just want to bring it back to your attention. Could you please look into it and see what we could do about that? And then the 3rd issue I said was regarding the van parking. Our van drivers are constantly getting a struggle. They can't park in the village area because it prevents people from getting in and out of the parking spaces. They can't park over by the fire department where there's clearly a sign that says for van parking, because it blocks one of the bays of the trucks getting out. We understand that, but we were also told that part of the process of helping out with the parking was going to be assigning spaces for the fire department, and then getting rid of all that green space next to the senior center ramp so that our vans could pull in and put their lift down so people could get safely in and out without blocking parking. And I have been recently talking to someone, seeing how I live here in Essex, and found out that Parks and Rec has not ever been given direction to remove any of the grass. So why are we told one thing and the department's told another?
I can answer that.
I could also
I can answer,
speak to
I
that.
answer, we have Dennis that's looking into the handicapped accessibility. It's a very high ticket item to do this. So Dennis is looking into what is required, how to best to address the handicapped accessibility. The other issue with the senior van is Parks and Rec was not discussed with this. This is a public works issue. And so we are looking, along with the community development director, how best to do the handicap ramp with Dennis. Not only the handicap ramp, but the bus, and where the bus is. The bus cannot sit over the lines of where the fire trucks need to go out. That's what we've been struggling with. The senior van cannot back in and out of the space on the other side, which is where the access is to the senior center. They've had accidents. It's a tight space. There's cars coming in and out of there. It is not the right place for that van. So we've allowed him to continue to drop off on the fire side. He just can't stay there. He has to then move the van. Because if we have to get the fire trucks out, that is our number one responsibility, is to get our firefighters in and our firefighters out.
Yeah.
I apologize for the seniors who may have to walk a little bit, but that is what it is. The other thing with the 4 parking spaces versus 7, I think we're all keenly aware of our parking issues with having a senior center, CHIPS, the village hall, and the library, and operating businesses operating all in the same space, trying to get those parking spots. That's why we had to dedicate spots to the to the fire department. We are struggling to keep enough parking spaces open and available for daily operations. Luckily, there isn't that much traffic here in the village hall from time to time, but as you can see by tonight, I bet you if you go back out there, a lot of the spaces, I don't believe the library's open tonight, so that's a bad example, but if the library was open, we'd be at parking maximum.
Yeah.
We are struggling to keep enough parking for all the activities in and around these buildings. And so I did originally start with 7, and then I said, well, and then the library came to me, and others came to me and said, if you give them 7, we will have no spaces for our patrons. That's where the change came. And so we're balancing day by day what we need. There are days we don't have a parking spot for anybody coming in to do business with the village.
Okay, thanks, Evan.
You're welcome.
All I can respond right now is saying, as you've seen, we are absolutely aware of it. I can't promise you anything right now, but I think that in terms of the ramp and access to the door, we are absolutely aware of it. And I know that both the village and the town staff want to do something about it. I know that sounds like I'm just kicking the can down the road, and honestly, we understand that it's a problem, and we need to fix up that whole area right there. We are making progress. We did fix that great big white door that was about to collapse, so you can see that we're slowly working our way towards the center, so we're gonna do it.
And one other thing, I have Dennis and Ricky looking into the paving going into this building. It is crumbling.
Yeah.
For those in the audience, concrete it's supposedly very durable, except when you put salt on it. And if you use salt within the first year of concrete, it pits it. So in the first year of concrete, you can't put any salt on it, which doesn't help for access to a public building with seniors. So we're looking at other options, including maybe heating the surface. But it's expensive, and so Dennis is looking into this. It's just, it also has to be done at the right time of the year. It's not that we don't want to do it, it's just it has to be done, planned and done at the right time. And there's never really a good time to do something in a building that's open about 320 days a year. So, poor Dennis, I guess, I would say, but he's been tasked with it.
We'll figure it out. But Lori?
So, I mean, obviously, we're all aware of the situation in this parking lot. But I think what would be beneficial, because we have talked before about the senior van parking and parking spaces, is, and then I know that handicap buttons are something Dennis has been looking at, but maybe we could have a follow-up from Robin and Dennis, and,
Sure.
you know, if it's not the next meeting, the meeting after that, so we can just kind of keep everyone on task with some of the priorities we have.
Okay. That's good, but why don't we roll that into a general sense of what next steps are with this? And that's coming up, we're looking at budget season, and so that's probably the time to have a big discussion about it. We don't have to decide it all right now, but.
No, it just would be nice to have some updates on what, you know,
Okay.
Robin's creativity has brought to the table.
Okay.
I'm sure he's trying.
I have also met with Ricky Jones. We measured the van one day, we measured the first spot closest to the bay and into the shrubbery curb area to see if it was even feasible to start looking more into, and
Right.
it is. And so that's kind of,
Okay, great.
and I even said, well, is this something that we would have to contract, or is this something where the town and village are working together? And he said, oh no, we can do it. So
Yeah.
we're there,
Great,
you know,
thank you.
but
Takes time.
And the other,
sadly, I
and
mean,
the,
yeah.
and the other thing is we
Yeah,
cannot,
it
we
is.
don't wanna remove the concrete that is separating the parking lots from each other,
Right,
because then you get passed through
yeah.
people driving through that, which would be catastrophe
Right.
if that was allowed. We had to close off the driveway just so that people weren't using the driveways to cut through to Pearl Street, which, by the way, I believe, and I've talked to the library and others, has really changed the speeds of which,
Yes,
how
it has.
people are coming through the parking lots.
Absolutely.
Have you noticed?
Yeah.
At first, the library didn't understand what we were doing, and then when we explained it, they went, oh yeah, that is much better.
Yeah, it is.
So.
And just a quick note, in one of my conversations with state committee somewhere, that was mentioned, because we were talking about handicapped accessible doors and the cost that it, and everything. There is some place, and I will look it up when I get back to the office and let you know, that they do have used handicap push buttons that have been like refurbished, and they said, please let municipalities know that these, you know, that they could contact these people, and if budget is an issue, that they are available, so it just might be something that you wanna think about.
Oh, yeah,
And-
absolutely, pass that on to us.
And Lori, if the state has any programs, that would be
Yeah.
great. One of the things we are doing is reaching out to the school district as well. They do ADA more than anybody.
Right.
And so we're looking to partner with them and hopefully get some in, but ADA doors are very expensive.
Yeah,
Not that we don't want them, they're just very expensive. And this is an old building, so it would have to be retrofitted for sure.
Yeah.
I had someone reach out to me after our last meeting about the senior center and the handicap doors, who was at another local business and took a picture of the handicap button and the door and the entrance. And the handicap button was here, and then the door went that way. And the person, and I was appalled too, you know, and it's just one of those things, not only do we have to afford it, but we have to do it right.
Yeah. We would not like to find a senior in our bushes. It's
No,
not-
not at all, so.
Okay, are other audience members have questions, comments? Everyone good? So we'll be discussing this more later on as we get closer to the budget season. Trustees, any other comments, questions? we good for now? And I want to again express my appreciation to both of you for coming here and for supplying the information. It's very extremely helpful,
Thank
and
you.
for all the helpful comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I will move on quickly to the next piece. Unless someone, do we need any follow-up discussion, or we can follow this up as we digest this information? Good? Okay. I am gonna, while everyone's filing out, the next piece I can just deal with quickly. This is, you all know about the ADA upgrade for the Amtrak station. We've been all through this. They're putting in the concrete ramp, the access ramp that's gonna go from the Amtrak station all the way out to Main Street. It's a significant project. I think you're all aware of it. But for some reason, I guess they decided I'm the owner of Essex Junction. And so,
Well, you are, aren't
yeah, I
you?
am, right. And I wish, I can guarantee you I'm not, because things would be different.
Maybe we should make it.
Things would be different if I was the owner. And I'm about to sign off on this, and Evan, as I understand it, Robin, Jim Jutris, Rick Jones, and Rick Hamlin have all signed off on this. They've had multiple conversations. All of the bugs and the questions have been ironed out. They are going to be coordinating with the village. It is a significant project, and it is going to have a huge impact on rail. It's going to shut down the street when it gets done. And my understanding is it's not going to get done until next year. They're talking about it. I think what I last remember was like spring of 19 is when they were talking about it. Is that correct? Jim, do you by any chance remember when they said this Amtrak project was going to get started? I think they said next year. They pushed it out.
It's
They're not
not
gonna try
next
to-
year, and we also have a water line project in the area we're trying to coordinate, but we don't have set dates for either.
Okay. But I'm about to sign this, and I didn't want to just sign it on my own without making sure the trustees were aware I'm signing it. So I'm ready to sign this because they wanted this,
Right.
they wanted the permission so they could get everything turning by next week.
And just for the board's education, if you think pinning the state down on when they're going to do a project, try pinning the federal government down on when they believe. There's a lot of paperwork that goes on for a federal project. So if they say spring 2019, that's a beginning. It's a beginning.
Yeah, and I will add one thing, and it was really problematic with this whole thing. The project manager is from Philadelphia, and she's an Eagles fan. And they had just won the Super Bowl, and she gave me a lot of lip. So, she's lucky I'm signing this.
And the other thing is, it is work that is happening next to an adjacent active rail line. That is going to slow things down to a snail's pace. They will need flaggers, they're gonna have to make this a slow speed zone, and it's gonna take a while. It's gonna disrupt railroad and Central for quite a bit.
At the same time as the Crescent Connector and as Jim talked about the railway
Yeah.
water line project.
Yeah.
So essentially, east of Five Corners, don't go there.
Make sure you go to the businesses and
Right.
make
Right.
sure the businesses are gonna hurt, so
Yeah.
make sure you get there.
Yeah.
Does this kill or just delay the previous work that was done around redesigning the train station?
It doesn't interact with it at all. We had hoped that there could have been some interface and that they might have then done they might have helped us out a little bit there. It really, I think it eliminates one of the parking, maybe two, I'm remembering, I don't remember, Jim, was it one or two of the parking spots?
It was minimal impact on parking, but it was mainly the ramp and ramp elevation.
Yeah. I mean, the ramp would have to be there anyway,
Right.
and that was, the ramp ultimately is a very good thing. Talk about handicapped accessibility or
Right.
disability. So it's really an essential thing. But unfortunately, it would have been great if we could have had the funds to but we just don't. So we're just taking what we can get.
Right, and hoping the congressional delegation is just watching and ready to write
Right.
that check
That's
to
right.
us to, okay.
That's right. So I would like a motion. It would probably be good if I had a motion to authorize the village president to sign the Amtrak ADA station upgrade.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Jim, thanks. Okay, thanks for waiting, Jim.
No problem, thank you for
I
having
think
me.
I think we're on to you right now. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm here to request modification for a supplemental funding for the phosphorus innovation grant that you folks approved back in May of this year. We did receive the grant award.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Outstanding.
We had a strong proposal.
Yes.
We're looking forward to this, and if successful, I think it'll save the facility a ton of money as far as current and future phosphorus compliance, because most of the phosphorus we're dealing with and collecting as part of Lake Champlain limits that are imposed on us, we're recycling upon ourselves, which makes it kind of an endless story. So being able to interrupt that loop will be very effective. Unfortunately, 6 grants were awarded instead of the anticipated 5, so the pie pieces of the
smaller.
pie got a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
So I'm here to request the village purchase one particular item that was part of this overall project. It's a unit called HydroFlow. It's a sole source manufacturer. The reason for purchasing that, we can use it dual purpose. We can use it in a pilot, but we can also use it daily for our dewatering operations. We originally looked into this to enhance polymer use at the facility and to get a drier final product for disposal. And it's important to have a dry final product because we pay per ton disposed. So the more water you squeeze out of it, the more money we save, the more we stretch the budget. So by purchasing this unit, it's a wraparound device. It's one bolt that's on or off the pipe, so it could easily move from the pilot back to dewatering. So as a solution to the financial shortfall of the budget, I'm requesting your consideration to purchase that unit directly.
Any questions?
This is not going to impact us getting the grant money, is it?
Not at all. We have a meeting next week to confirm that, but this would be the first step. We have to redo the budget in order to meet the criteria, but if the village purchases this equipment and supports it as dual use, I think that would only help with the next phase.
Other questions for Jim? Let me make an attempt at a motion here. I will make a motion that the trustees modify the FY19 wastewater facility 2019 capital plan to include $30,000 for purchase of a HydroFlow unit.
Second.
Any further discussion? And I'm just going to say, in terms of the grant award, we were the only municipality that received the award. That was so impressive
Yeah.
when I saw that. And congratulations to you, Jim. Thank you.
George, do
Yeah.
you want to add the portion at the end about the unified manager?
Yes, and let me add to I meant to add to my motion, the unified manager is authorized to sign the incentive pending any legal review deemed necessary. Okay?
Was the second Elaine or Lori?
Me.
Lori,
Okay. Everyone good? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you so much, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
And congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's
your
great.
new,
Thank you.
and your new buddy, Governor.
Now that you're finally here, congratulations. It's nice that you've been recognized nationally for, a few years now. Now finally locally, you're being recognized as well, or statewide.
Well, and it was happened to be pouring out the minute the
Yeah.
governor showed up.
That was a wet day.
Yes, it was, but it was a good day.
It was a
Good
good
day for
tour.
the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, new business, we are on to review and discuss draft purchasing policy. Lauren?
So, the last select board meeting, they have a different process at the town where they have to accept a policy before they approve it. So we went to them for acceptance, and now we're coming to you for review and comment so that we can present it hopefully for adoption at the joint meeting. But as I explained to them, 3 years ago, Dennis was eager to do this policy, and just wasn't time. We didn't have time. And so in the spirit of alignment that Evan got us started with this spring,
Thanks for
It
blaming
seemed like
me.
a really important policy to align between the town and the village, and although it's quite large and involved. So I took the the village policy, the town policy, the VLCT model purchasing policy, and then I attended a webinar on purchasing policies that had one from the city of Golden, Colorado. So I used all those pieces and parts and put them together. We sent that out to the department heads. They made comments and changes, it came back. They sent it out again, made comments and changes, and it came back. And I don't know how many times it came back, but it was a lot. And so this is the draft that we've come up with. It has a few things I think that the old policies didn't have. It has this, it has a an ethics policy. What's
Table
it?
of contents.
It has a table of contents, which I was so thrilled. That was what they gave.
Yeah, that's a big company.
Well, in
Big-page
the
document.
webinar, they said, put a table, I said, what a wonderful idea.
Worth the price of a webinar.
Who would have thought of that?
And have the pages actually be correct.
I know, and well, with Word, you just update it and it does, it fits up, but anyway. So we have a table of contents, we have an ethics guideline, signature authorization for purchasing. I mean, we get signatures and we have no idea who's written, who's been authorized. Competitive bidding, Dennis and Ricky and Jim are gonna put together a model bid and pricing forms. We have information on pre-qualification, departmental exceptions, which our departmental heads have gone through and authorized. Leases, contracts, real estate, it's pretty comprehensive, and credit card use policy. The one thing that I think the trustees and the select board really need to look at is those authorization thresholds.
Okay.
So I made a mistake at the select board meeting, because I had run a calculator, an inflation calculator, but I started with the wrong number. So that wasn't right. So the policies I was working off of, the select board policy was from 1989, and it had a major purchase identified as $4,000. And then the village has one that was updated in 2005, and it has it at $10,000. So, and I had when we started this process, we had the major purchase had been 25, and then it was suggested by the department heads that that was too low, that we would be wasting your time with sealed bids at that rate, so we increased it to 40. So that's the big one,
Okay.
is those purchasing thresholds.
I mean, when this came through, I think you've answered all the questions, just wanted to make the comment that as long as village department heads think there's not gonna be any hindrance, or this isn't a step back from what they currently have, and I think you said you answered my question before, Evan, and said, you checked with them already, and everyone thinks everyone's on board with it.
As you can see, so just 5 minutes ago, Jim came to you with a single source hydro flow, whatever that really is. And I know what it actually does, but I don't, how it does it, I don't know. But there's a company that makes it. It's not like something you go out and bid. You're not
Yeah.
gonna get,
No.
and why waste your time? And they're not universal. They have to be built for what you're doing. So those types of things we take into account in this policy. We will be having a discussion in the near term future about websites. And we've done a lot of research, but ultimately, we might ask for a sole source provider because we've seen their work and we know what they're capable of doing, and that's what we'd be looking for. So instead of going out to bid and taking chances that you might save a little money, you might save your money, but you might not get what you want.
Okay.
And so those are the types of things, but the department heads had ample opportunities to weigh in, they did. I think they put Lauren to the test. Sliding to Lauren and Sarah and their work on this, it was quite thorough. They were collaborative. They took a lot of what ifs. And ultimately with this is we're also looking at your time and not bringing everything. And sometimes government gets a bad rap for how long it takes us to do things. And we're gonna do them anyway because we don't have a choice. So why go through all the approvals? You hired your administrator, you hired your finance department and others to do smart things in your name. And sometimes we just have to move faster. And this allows us to do that. But still brings a lot of the controls back to you because although this will sound bad on camera, $40,000 doesn't buy what it used to. We spent a lot more than that in salt. We spent a lot more than that on our properties. In any given project, we spend a lot more than that on roads and bridges and railings and other things. So these things will constantly come back to you. But it's the smaller things that we tend to want to move faster on.
Okay.
And it will be really nice to have the village and the town doing the same things,
Yeah.
with the same rules.
Yeah, agreed.
And our auditors may like it.
Auditors may like it as well.
Make things easier.
Yeah.
They're here this week, right?
Next week.
Next week.
So we're not approving this, we're just commenting on it tonight and approving it on Thursday night. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a couple. So with the definitions of the purchases, one of the things I didn't see in here outside of under major purchases, if there are not suitable contractors, and I just want to make sure I'm explicit with this, is I don't see our approval in here. So is this saying we've set the budget, but the budget's been approved by voters, staff are going to go and buy stuff, and whatever you feel is needed to buy, you're going to buy, and we're not going to have the gym presentation? Because that's the way I'm reading that.
No, they're sealed bids, and you still gonna award them
But is that in here?
for the major purchases only, which is the only thing that you really approve now. I mean, Jim brought you that because he wanted to change his capital budget.
Right, I mean, so, but I see, so seeing things like, under major purchases, value over 40,000, all major purchases shall require a sealed bid process unless waived, or being waived by the trustees. And then the manager assuring that the completion is not restricted. So when it comes down to actually approving the purchases to happen, I guess, can you show me where that is in here?
I'm looking.
Because if I missed it in the sealed bid section or whatnot, that's entirely possible.
So if the price is under 40,000,
If it's under 40,000, no, but if it's over 40,000, yes, it has to be awarded by the trustee of the select board.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find where it says.
So
that.
maybe then for the 11th, for the meeting after the 11th, if you could,
Sure.
let us know where that is, that'd be appreciated. And then,
and assuming it's budgeted,
yes,
if it's not budgeted, it does have to come to you.
right.
Just a clarification.
Yeah, just for my personal stance, if we've budgeted for it in the budget, I don't feel the need to tell you to go to widget A or widget B.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's in here as to where which widget A, which widget B is it necessary for us to come in on. And then, hang on, Dan, with the major purchases of $40,000, the village's current policy for capital expenses are anything $10,000, or that's the capital threshold. So would that policy then be amended to align with 40,000? Because I know from the capital program review committee, when we once had to approve or discuss a server, which we shouldn't be involved in.
So the capital policy is $10,000.
Right.
Yes, that's another
So
issue.
would-
This doesn't change that.
Okay.
That's a different
We need to
policy, which
update
we
that.
may want to
Yeah.
change it, but right
Okay.
now, it's,
So those are still, those are separate from this?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not quickly getting to it, the pre-qualified bidder portion. One of the things I couldn't recall, maybe you can tell me which page this is on, since I'm not getting to the table of contents quickly enough. Is that for, when was the pre-qualification?
It's for major
apply to.
projects, like $250,000 projects. We use them like on the Crescent Connector,
Mhm.
we use them on the Grove Street project.
There are projects that you want pre-qualification of the contractors to know that they are in fact capable of doing the work. I'll give you, for instance, the Crescent Connector is a $7 million project. You are not going to let a company that does parking lots, pavement. If that's all they do, they're not qualified to do state work. They'd have to pre-qualify that they have a state ability to do work, a federal ability if they're using federal funds, and then therefore they're not able to bid. And if they are the low, because then if they were the low bid, you can't accept them anyway. And then you have to go through this whole process of not accepting the low bidder.
Directly through the state for our own, there are points and times where having a helps with competition. It helps also that if there are the small organizations trying to increase their capacity and whatnot, that it can be beneficial to go outside of the typical 2 or 3. So I guess it's just more of a personal philosophical piece around pre-qualified vendors.
And I believe there's some rules around when we would do it.
There are not. I was looking at the old policy, it did say for projects over 250,000, and maybe we should add that. Would you like that? Would you like me to add that?
Sure.
For the pre-qualified? is that-
Projects
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
over 250,000. I believe I saw that in the old one, and I didn't put it in, so.
Good catch.
No, I was just, raising it to purchases of over, 40,000, that would be, have to go back to the board, and I'm just trying to think back over the time we've been on the board, how often that, I really can't think, can you think of any, I don't know, it's just,
I mean, most of it has always
Yeah.
been the capital.
right, capital plan, so it's already budgeted,
Right.
but this is for just unique person. I don't know,
Would
I'm
you-
not saying I have to control the purse strings all the time, but it just, I kinda like to,
I mean, 48,000.
Yeah, it's a lot of money
is
at
a lot.
night.
I mean,
I don't know, just,
for a $3
Yeah.
million budget or
Yeah.
whatever.
It is,
Yeah.
it is.
So it may be that isn't in there, it could be it isn't, because in the town, they don't do that, so it could be, I just left it out.
They
The
don't
select
do
board
what?
doesn't
Can you-
award bids,
They don't do what?
they don't do the awarding of the bids, they are awarded by the public works director.
Interesting.
oh,
Huh.
huh, I didn't know that.
So the select board doesn't award, they don't award bids in the select board doesn't? I never knew that.
All right, I don't
Hmm.
wanna give up that.
Yeah, I wouldn't, I don't, that's,
No, I feel strongly about that.
I agree with Lori, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a matter of, I think it's a matter of public trust.
Yes.
Saying, we put you in those seats to sort of watch over the flow of money, and yet so you should not be sort of surrendering that to, to staff. It's not that we don't trust everybody, but I think it's just.
I think it's
just
one of
who's-
our core responsibilities.
Fiduciary.
Just the
Right.
oversight, just that
Exactly.
oversight, because, I
Right.
mean, not to say they're gonna do, wrong or,
No.
make it things, but it just gives a preponderance or an air of, you've got this,
Check and balance.
you want this oversight, you want to know, I mean, not that I don't trust Dennis or Jim or whoever, but, I
It-
just like to have that.
And I also think it ensures we know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then rather have that than after the fact, I
Right.
think,
Yeah,
as we've seen with other things that have gone on since we've been on board,
right.
since I've been on,
You understand
I do, I could have sworn I had it in here, but,
Okay.
I do remember talking to Dennis about that before, so, we'll make sure that it's in for this.
okay. And And that's for 40 grand or over.
40 grand or over.
That's the
And
minimum.
usually the projects are bigger than that.
Okay. Is that good for you guys? If that's the case, as long as that's in there for 40 grand, is that okay? Okay.
I think one of the other things that might help is for us to stay at the legislative and not get into the logistical problem solving.
Yes.
No, but I heard it argue a long time ago, I know I don't want to run late, but that elected boards make policy, and spending decisions are actually policy decisions to a certain extent, so we want to retain that authority.
I'm thinking of like what was it, $1,000 calendar add-on to our website. I think we spent nearly 45 minutes talking about that.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think those are the kinds of things that we can make sure the staff are.
But this is a
empowered to do.
bigger jump. I'm saying that's
Right.
from penny ante poker up to thousands of dollars. So that's a stretch. I agree with you, Andrew. but
Right.
That's where I just.
And I think that it would be
Not that we're
well
like-
within your rights to ask for any type of report, whether it's monthly or quarterly, of any expenses over 40,000 that occur.
Mhm. When we get
I would say quarterly. Let me say quarterly.
every meeting, we get the checks that go
Yeah.
back to the register, yeah. So.
Okay, I will move us along to review and discuss draft record retention policy, and this is the same deal, we're just looking at it right now and voting on it on Thursday, is that right, Sarah?
That's correct,
Okay,
yes.
why don't you take it away?
So this one does not have a table of contents.
Come on!
Look at success. So this is a new record retention policy, and it has an attachment to it, which is the Finance Department record retention plan. So just to start, this record retention policy was lifted straight from the Vermont State Archives and Records Administration, their model policy, and then a few things were changed to make it applicable to us. One thing that you'll note, it's not currently applicable to the police department because they have their own regulations, and then there was one reference in the policy that we couldn't access because it was like an internal document for the SAR, and that doesn't help us at all. So with the very few changes, the policy statement, the policy document, which is just 2 pages, was lifted from them. The meat of this is really an attachment, which so far we have the finance department's record retention plan listed, and we have informed all the other department heads that we are going to be asking of them over the next year or so to come up with their own to be added to this as attachments. What this is any time that we have a specific record type that we wish to hold longer than the SARA says. So if it's not on here, so the record retention plan says that we are going to follow the VSARA recommendations unless we want to hold them longer, in which case we've noted how long we want to hold them. The town previously did not have a records retention policy. The village did have one. This will supersede the one that the village had and put into existence one in the town. Much of what we took in the finance department's record retention plan is from the village record retention policy. It really covered the vast majority of what we do in finance. I think we rarely made the retentions much shorter. We may have moved a couple from 7 years to 5 years, but we, as a finance department, the 5 of us have spent a lot of time on this, and we feel very comfortable with what we've come up with. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just, what is the amount of time? What do you refer to the average amount of time? Do you have a ballpark, or do you have a?
Oh, it's anywhere from 0 years to until the state of Vermont no longer exists. So.
Which could be.
If we could average though, I don't know.
Very well.
I think 5 to 10 years is sort of the average realm, or audit plus 5. So it all hinges on the successful completion of an audit. So for example, right now, the very first one would be accounts payable invoices, and what the SARA says is until the audit is complete plus 0 years, which makes me real nervous. It's not nearly enough time. But so right now, our last complete audit was for FY17. We're about to start our FY18 audit next week. So we have FY17 invoices, we have 16, 15, 14, 13, and 12, plus all the FY18 invoices, plus the current year FY19. So at any given time, we have about 6 or 7 years worth of invoices on hand. So that's how you read the audit plus 5 or audit plus 3. And then there are only 2 things that we have listed as permanent, which is until the state of Vermont no longer exists. And those are our audit reports, which are very precious
Because
to
we
us.
love them.
Yes.
It's sad.
Yeah. And then our payroll registers. And actually, earlier this week, Vasara came out with a new GRS, which is a general records schedule for payroll management records, and that all meshes very nicely with what we have here, which was great to see, because right in the middle of the process, you hate to change something. Yeah.
And as you can understand with the records laws as the way they are, if you have that record, and it doesn't matter if that record is stuffed in a barn, in a basement, whatever, if you have it, you have to produce it. But if you have a records retention policy and you've disposed of it, you don't have the record and you weren't required to keep it. So it is better to have a policy and follow it than no policy and have a warehouse full of records.
So just a quick question on this from a previous work experience. Is this also tied to emails pertaining to these topics? Or is this not including that?
These are just those specific records.
These are just the specific records. Some of the GRSs that Vasara has put out, those are the general record schedules, talk about communications and different types of communication, including email or letters.
Yeah.
And at the select board meeting, we were talking, it was Andy who wanted to know what he could keep and what he couldn't keep. And
What does the select board member themselves have to
Right,
keep
so-
versus the record keepers
right,
of the main records?
so the board, probably working with the manager, will come up with their own record retention schedule, which will be attached to this policy.
Yeah,
I would think that since we are all using municipal email, that all of our communications belong to the village or the town. And therefore, it's not technically in our possession.
If you are using our server, yes. If you use your cell phone, your texts and other things are not on our server. So therefore, you may have to keep them or have a record until such time as the says you can get rid of them. One of the things that we say, if you send us an email and we receive it, it's on our server, you're good.
Right, right.
We don't recommend you text business, but
and so the reason why I was asking is just similar because of that, some of the things that we were doing involved many of us using our cell phones and whatnot. And there was a freedom of information request that involved somebody's personal cell phone. And the policy was a little vague around that. So is there one in the works, or sounds like there might be one in the works for an electronic records retention policy at our future meeting for us?
I wouldn't say we were planning on doing it at any time like immediately,
Yeah.
but we do have it on our radar schedule to do it as soon as we start doing some of this and we get a little more
Yeah.
comfortable. Because again, like I said, your pockets for the board, it's electronic, we have it. Most every communication, email between staff to you, you to staff is kept on our email server, that's fine. It's what happens outside of our purview that we have to talk about and talk with our attorneys as to how they see it.
Thank you.
One of Andy's comments was, so this is my work phone. And so if someone asks for a record, I'll give this, I have a problem giving this to you because it's my work's phone and that could cause some issues. And so we would have to figure out how long we need it for.
Yeah.
Well, depending on the carrier, what you're using,
Right.
you can access that information online through a server. You might not necessarily have to surrender the device.
And since we didn't have Rob Paluba, our IT director there, I didn't want to comment on what he's capable of doing.
Okay, let's swing this back over. So are we good, Sarah? We're good? Anything else any questions, comments for Sarah? Everyone good?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and so we'll get back to this Thursday night.
Thanks.
And we are on to yet another set of regulations and policies, amendment to the personnel regulations. Evan?
I'm sorry, was this?
The amendment to the personnel regulations.
Assistant to the manager.
Assistant to the manager, you want to add that to the
Oh, okay.
job
So,
structure.
right. As you have in your packets, we reorganized with Patty's retirement, and we realized this position was not in the list of positions. So we are asking to add it into the list. She has started about a week and a half ago, and doing a lovely job, Tammy Gitchell. And so the other thing I think we did is we left the current position in there just in case one day we want to use it, but we're not currently using it. So that's the request.
Okay, and I note that she's exempt from joining the Village Association.
That is correct. She does work on, will work on confidential information, including some HR work.
Okay. Okay. Any questions about this?
And for those who haven't met Tammy yet, please stop in the office, say hello. And Patty's last day is coming up, I believe it's the 14th. And so please stop in.
What day is it?
Next week?
I thought it was the 19th.
19th?
Next
Yeah.
Friday?
19th?
I
Okay.
thought we were 19 too.
19th. So
The
yeah,
19th, okay.
is her last day, so please stop in and say hello and goodbye
Yep.
as well. Tammy moved from Maine to be here, and she just found living quarters in Charlotte, Charlotte. So, and yeah, rented, and her daughter went into high school, and today was her daughter's first day of high school here, and yeah, but she does have municipal experience. George, you
I've
met
been-
her.
Very nice, yep, very good.
Channel 17.
So she came to us with municipal experience, which is great.
Okay. Okay, so, I will make a motion that the trustees adopt the proposed revisions to the Village of Essex Junction personnel guidelines.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Okay. And we are now on to FY '20, budget goals. I guess this is me, but Lauren, I'm gonna maybe ask you, I mean, in terms of budget goals, Lauren and Evan and Sarah, what sort of things are you looking for in terms of overall guidance? I mean, I think that traditionally what we've said is we want level service. We're not interested in dramatically cutting back any services, I think, but I'll sort of throw it open to the trustees. Anyone else have thoughts about this? It's certainly not my decision to make.
Are Lauren and Sarah talking, or?
Well, I think that maybe.
I can talk a little bit, if
Yeah,
you
but
wouldn't mind.
let's all just throw the floor open and whoever feels, go ahead. I don't
I'd
know.
like to hear a forecast or
Yeah.
some kind of
Well,
guidance.
I don't really have a forecast, but, so we're trying to align things.
Sure.
That's our, it's our big word.
Say it in the
Um,
office many times every day.
Yes, and so Dennis and I got together about the highway budget, and I would think we covered this at one of the joint meetings. One of the things that came out of that, and one of the things that Evan has been pushing for, is to have a buildings superintendent with buildings departments in both the village and the town that person takes care of. So we have developed our budget we've taken actually the Lincoln Hall budget and expanded it to include all the buildings in the village. So we've taken things out of the library and out of the fire department, and they'll all be in there with, and of course it'll need to be staffed, so that'll be part of the budget. We are taking the workers' comp and the liability insurances out of the departmental budgets and putting them into a finance budget. All except for highway, because the town picks up all the highway bills, so we don't wanna remove anything from it that's normally been in there. So that's another thing that you're gonna see a finance department where we didn't have one before. Is that it?
Where's your note? Where's your
I know, I lost it.
We are,
I know,
from
they were
a staff,
co-locating.
like, from a staff perspective,
Oh, and we're
No.
co-locating.
Yes.
That's
okay,
the other thing.
we're
that
talking about alignment and the cost of alignment. We're talking about building and property maintenance, that's the building position that we're looking at. It has not been determined whether it would be full or part-time. But we really need to start watching our buildings. The village and town spends tens of thousands of dollars, and it's disjointed and not really being watched as well as we'd like it to be. And we ask people, actually, the people who make some of the most money in our organization to do things like property maintenance, and they're not very good at it. They're good people, but they're not necessarily as good at it. Like, the other day, the roof guy was here, and we had 2 village employees making decent amount of money, standing there going, "What do you need?" They didn't know why they were there, but they had to let them up. Yes, sir.
Hearing what Lauren said, it sounds like some job shifting, maybe creating new positions. Is this gonna be a wash in the sense that the cost to the municipality, both communities, whatever, is gonna be transferred? It's just taking money from this, moving it over here, we're not increasing. It sounds like we're increasing government and government expenses, bringing in new positions. It sounds like we're gonna need more revenue.
Right.
And so that equates to taxes going up maybe a little more than what we've tried to do, like George said, is flat rate, and we're at cost of living basically, so that's flat rate, but, this sounds like it could extend up quite a bit higher.
Well, and that's why in this particular case, we're not set on full or part-time. I'm willing to try a part-time, because then there's no benefits, and we could try to make it as close to a wash as we can. If it starts going to full-time, it will butt up against the other priority, or other priorities, which is trying to add police officers. I think you all at town meeting and village annual meeting heard, people in our own police department will say, they're running call to call to call. And we want them to do more getting out of the vehicles, spending more time with the citizens, seeing the businesses, et cetera. Those are the types of activities. So from a staff perspective, we want to align the budgets a little better. We want to address our properties so that we are not, we're more accountable to the money that we're spending and to the buildings that we own, and so that we don't go, well, the $50,000 air conditioner unit, which should have had a maintenance inspection, didn't, and now it doesn't work. We want to make sure somebody's watching those things who has the ability and wherewithal to know that it needs to be done. And then the police, et cetera. And then the other thing is there are alignment costs. You guys met a while back. In this budget, you have the fire department trying to align their pay scales. That was budgeted for a half a year. In next year's budget is the other half of that cost. And so we're gonna have to try to smooth that in with everything else that's going on. And if the property maintenance thing doesn't win out, because the fire got this and the seniors got a little this or somebody got, then it is what it is. But those are some of the decisions. And we wanted to hear some of the things that are on your mind so that as we go into the budget, we either put a placeholder in it or start figuring out how much that may be.
Right. Just to go back to the property maintenance thing, I'm just a little confused about how it works in terms of flexibility. A plumbing leak at the fire department or in this building, well, okay, we shut the water off and we wait for the property maintenance person to come and fix the problem. A plumbing leak at the library shuts the library down. It's not, they can't wait. They have to have it fixed right then and there. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's by saying we got one entity that serves the village and the town equitably, and it's a first come, first served thing. I'm concerned about flexibility. Some property maintenance needs are more immediate than
Maybe a
others.
little bit, maybe think about it a little bit differently. You have a plumbing issue that's going on at the Brunel Library. Their first call is to the maintenance person. They call the plumber. They meet the plumber there. Yes, it's gotta happen, it's gotta happen. In an emergency, that's where
Okay.
you're going. In maintenance, it's like, okay, we have a generator here at this building. Someone needs to make sure that there's a contract and to run that emergency generator, they call it exercising it. It got done under load when it was supposed to be done, and there was a report. Someone has to do that. Do you want the manager to do that? Do you want the assistant manager to do that? Or someone who actually knows what they're looking at when they say they're coming here to do it? Those are the types of things that we don't do we try, but we don't do them very well because we don't understand them as well as we understand how to do a budget.
One of the things that would be interesting when we get to an actual budget and we're presented with some numbers that I would be curious to see is the difference between having either part-time staff or full-time staff, as well as if that were to be contracted out to one of the numerous property management companies that exist, whose livelihood depend on being able to tell you that energy thing you just said that I can't remember isn't working right and wasn't serviced on time, or yeah, the plumber needs to be there. Let me call one of the 15 I know and have great experiences with and get them over there as soon as possible.
That's a good suggestion. One of the other things is, we talked a little bit with the school district. They have 1 million square feet under roof. They have some experience with building maintenance. So it's also another, it's one of those things. But we need that activity. We just don't know how the final form may take in this go-round. And it may not meet the priorities list.
Okay. Can I ask another question? It occurred to me this morning, I went by Maple Street Park and I saw village dump trucks in the parking lot. And then I said, oh, that's right, that's village property now. So of course, if they need maintenance, it would be the village there. I'm always used to seeing, because I always used to see Essex Junction School District or, and CCSU, whatever. And then it dawned on me, what has been the impact on the work schedule and resources of Public Works that we have taken on this, not trivial, additional Public Works responsibility? Has it had an impact? And do we need to budget more for that, or how is that working out? We don't really think about that.
I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I can tell you that maybe the possibility of why you saw the trucks is, this weekend they had touch a truck over there.
It's fine,
I know.
Whatever the reason was there.
They have their maintenance staff as well, and we do coordinate with them from time to time on larger projects. I would have to ask Brad.
So they have their own maintenance staff, or we don't have
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Harlan and at least one other.
Yeah, and then they've always coordinated, even when they were under the school
Okay, sorry,
district.
I completely misunderstood
Yeah.
that, all right.
Yeah.
It's just what comes into Brad's mind or someone else. If it's something larger, then they coordinate.
Right.
But it's a good question. We should
I mean,
check it out.
I think overall, in terms of budget, I'm always concerned about trying to squeeze every dollar we can into capital projects to try to get as much as we can. And that's why I'm reluctant, as Dan is alluding to see anything that drives up the budget and other aspects, because that is such a high priority for us. And I think it is, in my understanding, it is one of the differences between the town and the village. We have such need as far as that goes. So that, I would only be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Along those lines, do you want to make a transition to the capital budget?
Well,
Can I ask
yeah,
something?
I think we've
Not
got a
yet.
few more, I think we've got a
Yeah.
few more questions here. Go ahead.
Just a couple, so some of the budget considerations that I have are actually generated from the senior center conversation. I would like us to see how we can, I'd like to hear from Dennis and Robin and Dennis and Rick about the projects under consideration at the senior center and how we can work them in. Not saying all of them, but let's have a little bit more predictability on that so we can answer questions. And I'm assuming that the village snowplow budget is not going to change as a result of the busing situation because we don't have buses. So we're good. We're not experiencing any significant increases in plowing.
Not in the village.
Right, okay. And one thing.
Although there is one item. Salt costs did go up this year
Right.
significantly.
And the other thing I want to give you all a heads up is, Channel 17 is going to be coming by in the near future, Lauren Glenn Davidian, to give you the annual update, just like Charlie did. But she's gonna be asking to double the village's contribution, which is currently $6,000. And the reason for that is that Comcast has, this year alone, because of people cutting the cord and not subscribing to Comcast, the budget has gone down $50,000 just this year. On top of that, there has been a change in accounting practices that Comcast and other carriers like Burlington Telecom have to change their accounting practices in regards to bundled services. So the dollar amount that they take the percentage of user fees out of to give Channel 17 their budget has gone down. That was a one-time hit, but the reduction in users is a serious concern, and Channel 17 is addressing that with fundraising initiatives that you'll hear about in the near future, but she will be asking for that. And my recommendation to her and to the board as chair of that board is that instead of coming every couple of years and doubling, we're gonna try to do like a 3% increase over time, because it's ridiculous to keep coming back and asking for a significant chunk more. But that will be asked of both the village and the town. That's all I have.
The only addition I have is to feedback on Elaine and the senior center. I want to make sure that we continue this conversation and have more of a board policy conversation on, what we do want to invest in the senior center. It seems like it's that one last entity within our village that we haven't really invested in. As we have the libraries and we have EJRP, and so I just would like us to. I think there will be an ask for some money there at the end of our conversation, from me at least.
Okay.
So I just want to put that out there.
Okay.
Dan, do you have something?
No.
You said your piece?
What's that?
You said your piece?
I said my piece a little bit, but I getting on to what Lori's saying about the senior center, I agree, we need to address it. The parking issue, I hear it, and I hear Evan, and it's catch as catch can, and that's the way it goes. And until we put in meters, or until we do anything in this village, we're not gonna get people moving their vehicles, anytime quick out of parking spaces. And then as far as senior center goes, I agree with the whole thing of like the ADA compliant doors and such. Really, we gotta get to that stuff. And I think we gotta look also at, I know Luann brought up that it's comfortable, it's nice, it's homey there, but if it continues to grow, they're probably gonna grow beyond, and that's growing pains, they're talking about parking. So we gotta look at the next step, because we're really at the cusp of the maximum capacity for where they are at the site. Now, what happens to Lincoln Hall, and who knows with, alignments and consolidations and such, maybe
It's an opportunity.
right, that's what I'd like to bring up too, so.
Okay. Lauren and Sarah, did you get what you wanted from us, or do you want, is that good enough for now? Okay. All right, good.
But, and the schedule, we had you down for, budget day on the week of December 17th.
Should we schedule that?
You could.
I would appreciate it if we did
Yep,
that
okay,
sooner rather than later.
let's go to it.
Oh, but we have to,
We can schedule that first and then.
okay. And then
What's that?
Andrew,
He was talking about
the
capital.
budget.
Okay, so let me get my phone out here. What day, let's throw a day out there.
December 19th.
Works for me. Got it.
December 19th?
It's a Wednesday.
Thursday.
Wednesday.
Oh,
That's a Wednesday.
oh yeah, my
How
bad.
does that work for you, Dan?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, 19's usually, that third Wednesday is usually, if we have a regional planning, you know, we've got to look at the calendar and see what, you know, planning commission just, you know.
Okay.
Commission, see
December 19, right now is the,
the date, yeah.
Do you want to look at December 20? That's the Thursday.
No, that's all right, the 19, let's stick with 19.
And can we also just say right now, we're canceling our meeting on December 25th?
Yes.
Because I won't be here.
That'd be a
What?
great.
what?
Although, by then
I
I
don't
might
get
want
that
to
at all, Lori.
get out of the house.
All right.
Well, for that, we should put that on the agenda for the next meeting to cancel the 25th. That takes an actual, should take a motion and for action, so we'll put that on the next agenda.
Okay, good?
All right?
Everyone good?
Yep.
Unless it wasn't scheduled to begin with.
Well, it's
It
always.
is, it's on
a-
your
Yeah.
schedule there. No, on your manager's report, you've got it,
Yeah.
you've got it on there. And it says, cancel, question mark?
Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that.
So.
So with the budget, if I can,
Yep.
from the capital meeting we had last week, one of the things you probably see in the notes is we talked about the capital funding. That was pretty much the extent of our conversation. One of the things I want to make sure is understood as well is there were some words that were used around potential future funding sources. Those were intentionally discussed to be future, long-range future, not this upcoming year. So I can't recall off the top of my head. I want to say local option tax is one of the things that was put in there. Impact fees. Those are not things that from a capital committee standpoint we were looking to get the information on and have set for this upcoming budget year, but potentially for a future. And what was also discussed is for that to really also be like a plan B, barring future conversations about the town-village consolidation efforts. So I just want to make sure you heard that from me,
Okay.
so that you got
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, and then the other thing related to that is Lauren did her great spreadsheet work and brought us the capital reserve plan as it stays now, where every year we're increasing the contribution to the capital budget by 7.5%. Doing that puts us into a hole come FYE 2014 or 2024, where we would have $304,000 in planned deficit in the capital budget, which that's generally not a good thing.
Right.
So what was said to us is, I think Evan in his wisdom said to Lauren, what would happen if that was higher? So these other pages that you have are the exact same thing, with the exception of the increase changing. So you notice in the very top where it says capital, general fund capital reserve plan, and the little text below this is 7.5% increase. The second page is 10% increase per year, the third page is 15.5% increase per year, and the last one is 15% increase per year.
Can you, I'm not following what you're increasing. I think I am, but let me
The
make just,
transfer into from the.
the transfer
general
from the
fund.
general fund.
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Yep.
So we took
It's-
it at 7.5%, 10%, 12.5%, and 15 to see what it would do in the out years.
Okay, and what's getting not funded in the general fund? In your wisdom?
Oh, this is just to increase that contribution.
Oh.
So frankly, that would be
The
tax.
grand list is gonna go up and take care of it all.
It just all gonna happen by magic? Okay, I didn't understand. I thought it had a basis.
No,
Magic.
some very hard choices are gonna have to be
Like
looked
what you,
at.
like what you said, George, and how one of the differences in your opinion of the town and the village is we fund a fair amount into the capital.
Yeah,
like
we
I'm
do.
paraphrasing. And so if you look into the very bottom of the spreadsheets, whatever page you're on, you'll see ending fund balance. And if you follow that all the way over, at least on the first page, where it says FY 2024,
Mhm.
you have in the parentheses,
Yeah, I got
$3,000
you.
to $4,000. That's where things start to go negative.
Yeah.
That's why, I was wondering why you didn't have a negative there, you just parentheses.
That's just the way that the
Oh, that's what
spreadsheet is
they're,
done.
all right.
The way that goes away is if we were to start this upcoming fiscal year that we're talking about planning for, and were to be a 12.5% increase, that at least temporarily goes away for FY 2024. Rears its ugly head again in FYE 2026.
Right.
If you want to avoid that one, well, then you gotta go to 15% starting this upcoming year. And when we're talking about 15%, Lauren, can you remind me, that's $12 per average household?
Yeah, it was 12, I think 7.5 was $6.
I think so.
For the first year, well, it goes up.
So when
It
it goes,
increases.
right, the increase would go up to $12 over what is being paid, to go up to 15% every year. So
And
we're
then-
not talking $100 per household, we're talking 12.
When, speaking of this, Andrew,
It's still something, yes.
looking down the road, the bond that we voted in, when's that gonna expire? So just,
Oh, that's a long one.
Was it paid
It's a
off?
long way. It's
That's
20
way-
It
years.
was 20 years,
It's a
so
20-year
it's
bond.
about
so it's
15
got,
years.
but it still have like 10 or 15 years, so it's,
Now, we
It's
do
gonna be 15.
have the Maple Street bond that's gonna be paid off.
Yeah.
It pays
in a
off
couple
next
years.
month,
with the
right?
pool, with
Next
the rec.
year.
Next year.
Yeah. So, just so, I
Just
I
so-
assume that's incorporated if you're gonna,
Nope,
no.
that's not in this at all.
Well, this gets you into
That
the,
savings
this
isn't
always gets you
already
to the
accounted
question of what's
for?
cheaper, taking out a bond or raising taxes. And where do you want, where do you
No.
want the
And
payment
so-
coming from?
And so the intention
If
of
you're
this,
used to the payment, I'm just saying that it's easier,
Well, exactly.
you're paying on a bond, and then it's
Not that we need to
expired,
that
so.
happen.
Right.
so the
Okay.
intention of this is to say that one of the things that we're doing in the capital committee was looking at this, and we've run up against the time clock of information supposed to come to the trustees beforehand. And one of our major pieces of conversation is, should we bond versus should there just be that increase in taxes? One of the things that was discussed in the meeting is if we were to bond for anything, and then fast forward, should our two communities further consolidate and things happen, that original bond and the money paid stays back with the community who issued that bond. So if we wanted to hold off on any kind of bonding, at least in a temporary capacity, to let those conversations happen, personally, I think that would be advisable. And if we were to I don't want to say if we were to increase taxes to help prevent any kind of future deficit funding, to at least pay for the things that are currently planned for, let alone anything else new that comes up that needs to happen.
Well, that's been the problem in the past, too.
Right. So what the ask will be from the basically is from the capital committee is 7.5% increase this year isn't going to be enough, and it should be more.
Okay, I am not sincerely not trying to throw a controversial wrench into this, but I have to say it since we're in the spirit of consolidation, consolidating public works. As we know, significant tax revenue leaves the village and goes into the town general fund and then transferred into the town capital fund. If those dollars weren't going to the town, if they were staying in the village, have you looked at how much? Because that's a conversation we might reasonably have with the select board at this stage of the game. Has anyone looked at that? Do you have a sense of
That actually
that?
is part of the information I'm gathering for the governance committee. If I had a photographic memory, it'd be in here, but it's not. I do have it.
Do you have a general sense? Does it address the problem? Because I'm gonna guess that it does.
Does it address the, I don't,
Well,
I'm sorry.
I mean,
I mean, obviously, there's money, there's 42% of the capital tax is paid by the village.
42% of the capital tax of the town comes
By
from the
village
village.
people, because
And-
that's what the grand list breakout is.
Right, okay.
And that's 500 and some thousand,
517.
yeah.
So you're
The
talking
tax.
So maybe a couple hundred
$250,000. Okay.
Yeah.
For the village or the total tax?
No, for the village
The
piece.
the village piece of the town
Which
capital.
includes Global Foundries, which,
Yeah.
it's not all,
It's not all residential.
so.
I mean, I'm not trying to make a statement at all. I'm just saying in this spirit of alignment and consolidation, that might be a third option for us to have a discussion with them about.
I disagree, because you're just shifting the problem from one budget to another, and then you're gonna give the town a huge hit in tax increase, because there's gonna be that much less money going into the town capital fund. It doesn't seem like a
But maybe
logical.
there's a meeting point, you know?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, I
Because,
think it's a
we're looking
discussion
at
we should
taking
be
out,
had.
why did we take out a $3.5 million bond? Because we didn't have, we hit the wall that's in this thing here.
Yeah,
Where
no,
we
I
were looking
understand
at
that.
going into a hole. And in the same year we took out the bond, we're looking at transferring, several $100,000s into the town.
Mhm.
And I'm just saying, that there might be some, now that we've got Public Works, town engineer working with village engineer, there might be some other way of approaching this that
I would rather,
addresses some of the issues.
I agree to the concept of what you're saying. I would rather take the long view and discuss that possibility as a way going forward, not just to deal with this year's capital budget.
Okay.
I also think that one of the things that was mentioned is through the continued the consolidation efforts and the ability to utilize town expertise, like town engineering staff, for instance, as a method for helping to reduce these costs. It can be one way to try to help chip away at that. Ultimately, that alone still isn't going to solve the issue. It's again, there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to happen as our infrastructure's old and just needs to be redone, and somebody's got to pay for it.
Right. Okay, I don't have an answer.
So, yeah.
We don't
appreciate
have one
that.
yet.
So,
Yeah, so the,
is the capital committee going to recommend an increase, or how?
the capital,
When
the
we
capital
start putting
committee,
together our budget?
the capital committee will be recommending an increase. We didn't get along far enough to say exactly what percent, and or if it would only be the increase in the percent or some other method thereof. We would be planning to talk about that again at our upcoming meeting in November. But for today's purposes, yes, we would want it to be increased above 7.5%.
And they did, if you don't mind, they did mention, we did talk about bonding. And their preference was not to bond at this time.
That's right.
Again, if the village bonds and you do merge, that money that you bond is yours and your residents because they approved it, unless the other larger entity also accepts that debt, which is not likely to happen, because the money that was borrowed was used only in specific areas that don't benefit the entire entity of the.
Well, and only half of the
per
town
se.
voted for
Not
it.
necess- Right, so that's why they said, let's just, that's their,
I get it, but, okay, I get it, I understand, we've dealt with that. I mean, and how much money if the $3.5 million bond, the average household, what's the cost per year over 20 years? If we're not talking like a huge, so I mean, this isn't like, I don't see that as a deal breaker in terms of consolidation one way or the other. If we said, oh, let's take out a bond, I don't think that, well, okay, but the cost, the extra $20 or $35 per year is gonna stay with the village.
Well, it just,
Okay, so.
it just further complicates and further delays the benefit that we're trying to achieve, which is tax equity. So if we sign up for another 20-year bond and we just extended the length of time that village residents are gonna continue to pay more. But
Right.
it's for stuff that they wanted and it's for stuff that's limited to our boundaries, but I
Right.
wouldn't want to go
But
that
tax
route.
equity, you're talking $800, $900 per household per year versus $25, $30 per household per year. I'm just saying it's not a big, it's a double digit, not a triple digit or quadruple digit figure. That's
get
all. I
that.
don't see it as a big bump that we have to, I mean, it's more
I think it's
concerning
more
just
of a-
taking out a bond is just in and of itself, regardless of what we do.
I think it's just more of a perception that if the village is hoping to ease its tax burden and consolidate with the town, that we go out and take out another multi-million-dollar bond that sends an unusual message that maybe voters won't appreciate. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, if they like keeping their cars aligned, they might want to say, understand that it's something that has to get done and. The wheels of government
Understood.
turn slow, much slower than car tires.
Can I ask a different question
go
about
ahead.
this budget? Andrew, so are these like, is this the hit parade of the top priorities, these 18 projects that are on here now? Is these like the top things that have to get done?
They
Yeah.
are.
Thank you.
They are.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm gonna pull this in front of me. after-
Because I thought
after
that the
Laura.
binder was like this thick and there was a ton of projects in it.
We went through an intentional process where with Rick Hamlin, Rick Jones, Evan, Lauren, other village staff, Jim, some of those projects were weeded out. Some of those projects were talked about where they shouldn't even be in the book to begin with. Putting the sewer line further down Old Colchester Road does not need to happen and does not need to be in the budget for an example. So some of those were taken out, and then there have also been projects that have been completed that are also taken out now.
Okay.
So it is thinner.
So if you look at this schedule, on the side is, on the left side, they're numbers from the book, or letters.
Mm.
And those represent the letters in the book. And then if you look under rank, that's the ranks that the capital committee gave those projects. And then the next one is,
So the higher the number, the higher the priority.
that's
Yes.
right.
Got it.
And what is on here right now is South Street drainage, which is being delayed because they're trying to find grant funding. Lamoille Water, Iroquois, and Rosewood Lane are all the projects that are scheduled to go forward in the foreseeable future.
Okay.
So, if you have any other questions about the spreadsheet, just let me know. And when it goes into the annual report, it won't have all of this information in it. We'll squish it,
We have to submit, in the annual report goes up to FYE 2024, right?
it's 5 years, it's supposed to be 5 years, yeah.
So that was also part of the impetus is by making sure that, that
You don't go negative,
planned
yeah.
deficit doesn't actually be shown to the voters, yeah, we're just planning to not pay the bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they should say, you guys are doing 5-year budget cycles, I'm so proud of you.
Impressive, exactly.
Exactly.
That's actually mostly doable.
Yep, it is, until a water line breaks that we
Right.
didn't
Right.
expect, that it cost
Right.
$1 million to fix.
Yeah.
Yep. So hopefully we're fixing it before that happens.
Yep. Yep, okay.
And as we did mention in this, we use the town talent for the Main Street Bridge.
Yep.
Aaron Martin, the town engineer, basically ran that project where normally the village would have hired an engineer to do that and bid it out and oversee the project. He did that under the auspices of the alignment. Now, is that hundreds of thousands of dollars? No, but it is money that didn't get spent that we would have contracted to do, and we are looking for opportunities to do that. Will it change those numbers from negative to positive? No, but it'll cut the number down and save what it does save.
Right.
And so those are the things the town has agreed that they would do as projects permit. And we just have to keep working at some ways of doing this.
We wouldn't have been upset if they paid for the whole thing.
No.
I would have said that's okay. I appreciate this, this is really good.
Yeah, it is a good
If we could, maybe, it's probably too complicated, but it would be interesting to see what, if we just did cost of living, like a 3%, 3.5% tax increase overall, where we might be some suggestions to squeeze some extra dollars in order to meet the 10% or 12.5% piece.
Yes. So one thing to just keep in mind as well is construction costs on average go up between 3 to 5% every year.
Right.
So that 7.5% gives us a little bit of a cushion to be doing more than what we're doing today.
Yeah.
But not a lot.
Okay.
So, yeah. that's-
Yeah, these
but that would be a
projects
great
are
exercise.
escalated out at 5% a year
Yep.
on top of what their estimate is for this year.
Elaine?
Hold on, I'm just writing down a note. This might be upsetting an apple cart or something, but one thing I want to know is, so we've been receiving a pilot from the CVE every year, $15,000 that goes towards the capital fund. In the same vein as the Channel 17 contribution being, flat for X number of years and then suddenly needs a massive increase. I wonder if we should be talking to CBE about doing an annual increase on that. Like a 3% a year.
We can try.
It would be a nice idea. We are actually talking to them about their contribution for police services it has not kept up with our costs.
So they're
as well,
paying
so,
separately for
right.
police coverage
Yes, ma'am, they are.
outside of the pilot?
Yes,
Okay,
and it's gone up substantially because of workers' comp.
sure. I would argue, though, that while I understand that the police presence
I'm just
is,
letting you know.
I'm glad you
But I
told
do
me that.
think, that as a static number, we
Right.
would have to look at that.
Sure, I think we should.
Every little bit helps.
I think we
Exactly,
should
I think we
explore
should
it.
explore it, because I don't wanna have to suddenly, in a couple of years go, we really need a bigger bump from them, and then stop them with a 50% increase. We don't wanna do that,
Okay,
but I don't think it should be flat.
Agree with you, Lynn.
that's a very good idea, Lynn.
So I know we're getting late for our usual meetings, but just
It's okay to once in a while talk about stuff.
but Evan, that just brought up, one of the things you mentioned in the beginning, Lauren, is that moving workers' comp out of the individual departments and putting them all under the finance department. I'm curious as to why.
Because that's the way the town does it.
It was,
And it's not giving us, it's not really, it's a lot of work to separate it out, really. I mean, I don't even know how accurate it is once I get it separated out, but we do our best.
Doesn't make it every utilities.
Yeah.
Didn't we just a couple of years ago do the opposite?
Right.
Split it out? 'Cause
No,
well, I
no,
remember
workers' comp has always been split out,
Workers' comp,
and so has liability.
Okay.
What we did, what we used to do for a little while, a couple of years, we did an average on the healthcare costs.
That was it, okay.
Which was really good, and then we
That
went
was
back the other way.
I remember that, because the library
Yes.
budget went up
Yeah.
really
Yes.
high that year.
'Cause Pat liked it that way, but anyway, so,
The new guy's got his other idea.
and then the new guy's got some
Okay.
new ideas, he kinda likes the averaging, but he's got some even better ideas, so.
So, everything it's interesting, but as we move further and further into alignment and further into cost sharing, it gets extremely complicated in lines, right? And then you start doing percentages
Yeah.
and you got formulas and spreadsheets. It's hard to explain versus just sort of just hard and fast rules of how we're gonna do it and where they go. And so if you take all of this and then times it by a percentage, you get an answer versus having to have a binder as to how you did it or why you did it, and the memory of why you did it. The assistant two position that you guys just put in your stuff, that went from a 100% village-funded position, salary and benefits, to, I believe, 65-35, something close to that. So the town is now picking up 35% of that position,
Of the salary
of the
that
salary, not the benefits.
Yeah.
But so we're finding ways to do this and
Right.
pecking away at it as we find ways to work together for what we need. But as you start doing the budget, if you keep doing that in individual lines, it has the opportunity to just be a mishmash and nobody will understand it.
but it allows you, so like with workers' comp, it allows you to see if it should allow you to then see if one department is having more claims than another, and so they're costing us more. Same with utilities, if our utilities bill in one building is crazy.
We're actually
So if-
able to see that a different way.
So yeah, if you're able to see it in a different way, then yeah, it seems like that makes no point to
Yeah,
have a
so
program.
now, I mean, I have to take this huge spreadsheet
Yeah.
and allocate it out in order to get those numbers, and it's,
So you're
And just-
you're making the best guess essentially at a whole number.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
they do it, like an office workers' comp is low, and a
Right.
police officers is high,
in highway.
but we average them.
No, we don't.
We don't average
No,
it?
no, well, not in the village, of course, we do it as accurate as we can make it, but,
So,
Also, it's not, never mind.
But
So-
anyway,
So I just wanna, I have two questions, one comment and one question. In this mismatch and this book and this alignment and all these numbers, we are confident that the village money is village money and the town money is town money.
Yes.
So,
Very.
I guess you would all, Lauren, I'm just concerned that an answer to a financial question or a policy change might be because it's the way the town does it. I would much.
well, no, but I know, they shouldn't have said that, but it is the way the town does it, and it is much simpler, and we're not really using that information.
Okay, and that's great,
so-
and I trust you, but I wanna make sure for the viewer's sake,
No.
there is
And-
rhyme
and we are
reason
trying to
behind
do
our
it the
changes.
best way
Yes.
for.
Yes, and there are things that we do that are village,
Right.
and we use them better.
I get it, I
You
just
brought
wanna.
it, in your presentation, you brought it up earlier about when you were writing, the policy, whatever. You pulled a lot of the stuff out of the village, and incorporated it in the town. So I don't look at it, I hear what Lori's saying too. When you just say it is, that's how the town did it. If you'd added, because it's more efficient than the way we do
Exactly.
it, that would be,
Yeah,
that'd be
That,
the best way.
exactly, yes.
Thank you.
Good, everybody good? Should we move on to the
This
next?
is what happens when it
Yeah.
gets to be 9:00.
Oh, yeah.
Did-
Well, I
yeah, I know.
appreciate the detail that we went.
We just get way more creative in
We
our
do.
thinking. All right, should we, yeah, it is, and, yeah, let me say, thank you very much.
Yes,
for
that
this.
was-
Lauren did the
great.
work.
Thank
I
you,
just
Lauren.
talked about it.
Well, you gave her
You have big
the
shoes,
base.
just saying.
It's a good thing.
I'm sure you can do it,
Let's
but you
move on.
have big shoes.
Okay, let's,
No pressure.
why don't we move on to the manager's report? Manager, report.
It's 9:00.
I think we've set the trustee meeting schedule and everything already, and we probably aren't gonna meet on Christmas, I guess.
Yeah.
So we can move on from
Wait,
there.
wait, I'm sorry, I'm
You wanna meet
sorry.
on Christmas?
You wanna meet on Christmas?
Gosh, I'm sorry to go back. We were supposed to set budget goals. Did our board set budget goals?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that, I don't think were you looking for a specific
Because sometimes
number,
we've
or-
said, we want you to level fund, we want you to do 3%, we want this and that. Like, do we have any constraints or suggestions that we want to offer, or are we all satisfied that we did that?
I thought with George, at the point where you said it was gonna be cost of living, and this is the target. When we say goals is not a set in stone thing. This is what we'd like to attain. If we can't, that's the goal, and if you can't accomplish it, we.
That's fine, I just want to make sure that was clear.
I let up by saying, I think we routinely do level service, and try to keep increases to cost of living. And that's a general guideline for this point. I don't know much, but then I also said, but I don't want to speak for everybody. And then I opened up the.
That's fine, I just want to make sure that they knew what we were talking about, because I kind of felt like we were all over the place for a while there.
Well, we wanted to share what we were thinking too,
Yeah.
That was much
so
needed,
that you
thank
were.
you.
Okay, so we don't do we've done with the manager's report. I don't think we need to
I'll send
know
you
any
guys
more
an
on that.
email.
And I remind everybody that we are going to be meeting on Thursday
Right.
with the joint meeting with the select board.
Here, right?
Is that here?
Hmm? Is it here?
I believe it is.
I think
It's
it
here,
is.
okay. Here?
It's gonna be a little
Um,
crowded, but it'll be here.
It's okay, the more the merrier. So we're on to the reading, and trustee comments, any other additional
One
comments?
comment.
Yeah.
It was brought to my attention by some of my neighbors, and I brought this subject up multiple times. The signals at Park Street and South Street, and the timing of that. And a couple people have come to me and said that it's ridiculously long when there's no traffic at all on Park Street, and you're sitting on South Street for minutes on end, watching nothing go by, and then the light turns only for maybe 30 seconds, and then you gotta get out there quick, because if somebody does pull up on coming from ID or Gulf
They
Avenue,
come out
they
of
stop to
there.
turn, and then you miss the light, so you sit another 2 minutes. So that's an issue I think needs to
And
be
they come out of Global
fast.
so
Fast.
fast, it's
Going straight
really
between, so if you're gonna
dangerous.
turn left and head north on Park Street,
Yeah.
you could sit
Take
several
my
cycles.
chance.
But, so that's an issue, and then one of the other neighbors is involved, his job involves light signals and such, and he says it's broader than just that one intersection. But I told him to go to our manager, and I don't know, maybe Evan has had a discussion.
We've looked into this
Okay.
several
Yeah.
times.
Okay, all right. Well, I just, that issue, I know at the Five Corners, at other intersections, the West Street Extension intersection, I brought this up with Rick Hamlin, they have the bike sensor for bicyclists so it can turn when the bicyclist is there. They don't have that, I don't believe, at the intersection over here on South and Park. And that, I think, is something we really could use.
Is that a smart light or a dumb timer light?
I think it's a dumb timer light over here, and I think they basically alter it to whatever they want, I guess. And I think it's
I wonder
the
why it's on the
state,
screen.
probably the state, is the state doing it? Yeah, because it is a state route.
We've looked into,
Yeah.
Dennis has looked
Yeah.
into this.
We can't put a smart light in there?
I don't know
Yeah.
that particular part, but 2A gets the priority.
Mhm.
But I will get back with Dennis on this, because the last time I talked to him, my head was spinning after he talked to me, so.
I understand
I will go back.
the priority when there's traffic there, but when there's priority and there's nothing there, that's where you need
Yeah.
a smart light that, you know,
Senses.
senses it and says, wait, we're gonna shut down
Okay.
for that and clear it, so I just, what it's worth. That's only one comment.
All right,
I
thank you.
have one thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go first.
I attended a meeting last week, again, I was gonna send you something, which I didn't, but I will. And it was a meeting from, I don't know if you remember, it was through the town budget, but we were given a presentation on it as well, where this, 6 communities in Chittenden County and the state came together to fund for, community outreach workers through Howard Center.
Mhm.
And that all happened in, I think, late spring. So I attended a meeting where we met the Howard Center workers, and one of our police officers was there with, I think it was a South Burlington police officer, and I forget her name, Corporal
Ashley.
Ashley, and she was fabulous. Anyway, I walked away feeling like our money is being very well used by these community outreach people, and the police seemed extremely excited to have them with them. They talked about some of the calls they've been able to de-escalate. They talked about examples where, obviously they didn't divulge any information, but where they, were called to a situation that could have easily been handled incorrectly, and the police said this as well, where the person may have lost their home from that situation, and yet when the community outreach worker came in, they were able to de-escalate, the person's still in their home. So it was really a fantastic
Great.
presentation, and I do have some statistics specific to Essex, so I will send those to everyone.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That'd be great. Elaine?
Just 2 things. I last night attended a meeting at the invitation of the Essex Rescue.
Oh, yeah.
They invited all of the elected officials of the communities they serve to come get an annual update, and it was terrific. And we have an amazing Essex
Yeah,
Rescue.
we do.
I mean, we're very,
Yep,
very
I
lucky. So that was terrific. And they pointed out one important thing, that, the more senior housing we build, the more ambulance runs will be, and the higher their cost will be, which, it's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing, it's just a thing, and it's another consideration when we consider, when we're looking at adding new buildings to the downtown. And the other thing I wanted to tell you about the police is, last meeting, the select board approved some funding that was being used from basically the drug money. Like when there's a drug bust, the town police department gets a portion of it, and they are going to use those funds to have a canine officer and a canine, a dog.
A canine.
dog.
Nice.
This dog will be capable of sniffing for missing people, for drugs but not marijuana,
Uh-huh.
and explosives, right?
No.
Not explosives.
So the one of our newest officers came to us from the sheriff. He was the canine officer, and he had a canine. But when he came to us, the dog didn't come to
Right.
us, because the dog the dog is the property of the sheriff. The sheriff came to us and said, "We have this dog. Do you want him?" And we're like, We don't know if we want to start a whole program ourselves, but the chief and I talked about maybe a pilot. We used the dog we've used the dog about 25 times over the last, in fact, one of them, we used the dog recently, when he wasn't ours. We were looking for someone who had fled from us. The officer came, got out of his car, dog did a little bit of business on the side, got ready for work, and walked about 100 feet into some bushes and said, "There's your guy."
Awesome.
And the officer, Sherivelli, who's now with us, goes, "Well, that was the fastest recovery in our history. Good job!" Back in the car, apprehended. He was about 100 some odd feet away in some bushes.
Wow.
Right, with
Lack of
several.
creativity on the criminal's part.
Right.
And so, but we use them, etc. We do, the program, as you probably would understand, once we do get them, we would get on a call list, so if somebody wanted to use our dog, we do have mutual aid, etc., those types of things, but he came with the officer, and so we get a bunch of stuff from the sheriff, we get stuff that makes the car, we get a whole bunch of things, and we'll try it out as a pilot. The dog probably has 3 to 4 years of service life left, not his total life, but his service life. They tend to go about 7 years, 5 to 7 years, and the dog is 3. But they are trained with the officer. Once they are trained, they will not train this dog with anybody else.
Yeah.
So it's a benefit to the community, and we're trying something.
Great, that's cool.
So that's a good pickup. And then I was also at Essex Rescue, and there'll be an ask from them too in the coming years because of their call volume.
Right.
Okay.
Good news. Sorry.
Anything else, trustees? Okay, anything in the reading file, catch anyone's? We appreciate all the letters and thanks from the Steamfest folks. And so, anything else? So we are on to the consent agenda?
Actually, before we do that,
Okay.
there was, I did get a message asking if we could make 2 changes to the minutes. On page 2, starting off with
Minutes.
4D,
Okay.
Someone
one of the interviews for the Brownell board.
Oh.
On the, so under D, where it starts off with the person's name, and it says, as a village resident since 2006, and she and her husband have elementary and middle school age children, the request was to go to, if that sentence could be the person's name, introduce herself, as a village resident since 2006, when her 2 children were in elementary and middle school. And then that would just replace those first 2 sentences.
Okay.
And then the other one, it's, where is that? It's part about the train hop. Sorry, I can't find this in here now. Okay, there we go. So the person's name explained that she started the area's train hop. If that could be changed to that she was part of a handful of concerned neighbors that started the area's train hop. That was all.
So someone emailed you comments to fix the minutes?
Yep. I took a look back on the video, and it makes sense.
I will move that we amend the minutes as suggested by Andrew.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are amended. Anything else with the reading file?
Consent agenda.
The consent agenda, sorry.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda as amended.
All right.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Well, actually, Lori probably whispered it.
What?
Aye.